Thank you. And the Indigenous Acknowledgement Statement. We would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, Region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, and Wyandot peoples. Okay, so we have regrets from two people, Chris and Marie. And there is one change to the agenda. The audited statements, which is listed under item G, have not been received yet. So that won't be on our agenda.
Oh, well, that's good, because I thought I was losing my mind.
Well, I know I went about an hour ago, oh, shoot, I haven't read them yet. And then they weren't there, so I was kind of glad.
I'm wondering if we could add, or do we need to add the handout that Joanne shared from the multi-use feasibility study? I would
think it'd be part of the.
Is it-
Well, it's part of-
I think it'd be
because,
part of the verbal report.
Yes,
It
because
just happened-
Jen's on the
literally
committee.
came out yesterday, so.
okay, because I wanted to talk about that.
There was also, I just thought of this now, I did send out an email to all of the board when the Ontario Library Association launched a campaign to save school libraries. That was before it launched. It has launched now. So I can provide information. I don't know if you want to capture it.
Do you want to
In the
include
minutes.
that in your report
Yeah, I can do that.
or under correspondence? Is that what you're thinking? Or
Or other business,
other? Okay, so under other, it's the
Save Our School Libraries petition.
send it COLA.
Yes.
Question about that, if I may?
Yeah.
I saw that, but did it come with a resolution that, like, is there a resolution being passed from councils in support of it, or do we know it's just starting as a petition?
It's just starting as a petition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say if there was a shared resolution, I'd be happy to take that to the table too.
Maybe we can talk more
Okay.
about it.
You're not gonna be here by then.
No,
He has to leave
Oh.
it early.
Okay,
I can
Thank
hear.
but if we do come up with something, I'm happy to take it to the table. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
good deal. Well, thanks.
So any other changes to the agenda? Okay, can I have a mover and seconder that the agenda June 20th, 2024 be approved as amended? Joanne,
So are these minutes?
approval of agenda.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get logged on.
All in favor? Good, that's carried. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, thank you. There are a series of 5 reports to be received. That would be the action plan update for June, valuing the Blue Mountains Public Library, CE update for June, security cameras report, and not the audited statement. So there's only 4 items to be received. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? I've got Julia and Sean. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Now we're on to the minutes. Carol, I guess you have something to add
Yeah.
or say.
Yeah, I just keep picking my stuff up. The start of the minutes, and I don't know if it's been in every minutes, it says, call to order via Zoom. And the meeting wasn't by Zoom, so I just wondered if, that was my only comment on the minutes.
Okay.
So at the very beginning. Go back to the top,
Oh,
yeah.
It's been there all along?
probably. I will remove that.
Okay, yeah.
I never noticed it.
of eyes.
Yeah, I don't think I read that first line in a long time.
Other than that, the minutes were fine.
Well, okay, but I caught a couple little things.
Okay, there you go.
Motion number 36. I didn't write down the detail what it is.
Okay, I'm just sorry.
Oh, in fact, go back. carried is missed a couple of times. So there we are, at 33, there was no carried. And that's what I noticed in 36. So you just may want to double check.
Thank you.
And-
Admittedly, I did the minutes the last meeting and I'm doing them for this meeting as well, so this is just my oversight.
Okay,
So I'll go through, okay?
okay, and then under H, the second paragraph. So it says, Lori asked that the policy session should be section.
Thank you.
These are not big deals. Does anybody else have anything on the minutes? Maybe even in terms of content. Okay, seeing nothing, can I have a motion for the board approve the board minutes of May 16th, 2024 as amended? Carol? And Julia, thank you. All in favor? That's carried, thank you very much. Okay, we have no deputations, there's nobody here to provide public input, so there's no correspondence, or at least what we have, we put under other business. So we're now on to strategic plan updates, and the first one is the action planning. And so this is the version that we ultimately approved at the last meeting. My only question in terms of that was, there was a section I thought we had deleted, which was under excellent services, and it was 2.2. And I thought that we captured that in 2.1, and so had decided to delete that.
Sorry, what was the sense of that?
It's under excellent service, ES 2.2. Oh, yeah. This, on my notes, I crossed it out, so I thought that we
So
had,
which was, the whole thing was coming out?
I thought we had taken 2.2 out, because it was covered by 2.1.
I just had the increased usage linked in learning by 10% across there.
And, Joanna Link was here, who had to have,
Sorry, was thinking about
he,
my comment on 1.1, sorry,
Okay.
so where are we, 2.2?
ES 2.2.
Respond to demand for more services for digital learning, is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what did you say?
I
Laura?
thought we deleted that because we had expand digital literacy and competence in the community, and I thought it had been picked up under there.
And in my notes, I just had, we had 2 performance measures and I just had the last performance measure crossed out.
That part I do remember.
I don't have anything about taking the whole 2.2,
Okay, then I must be mistaken. Okay,
but I have a comment on 2.1.
okay, since we're on that page, we'll go back to yours, Julia.
So I had under actions, ensure staff representation in provincial discussions surrounding technology and digital literacy. Then I had BNPL rep on the Ontario Libraries in
That-
Technology Association.
That got moved,
Did that get moved?
yes, it's now under OE 1.2,
Okay.
ensure staff representation. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to the beginning.
Yeah, just 1.1, I was just questioning the definition of a program on older adults specifically. I was thinking, oh, is seniors fitness is probably an older adult program, but is that with 40, are we just one program of 42, or every time we
Every time counts as,
a program?
Yeah.
So we along with other sessions that you've done. Okay, so we could literally be 20 of the 42 programs then, if there's, or if
it's twice a week, right?
yeah, but not every, yeah, twice a week, so it could be more, okay, okay. I just wonder, should that be clarified, that a program? It's, yeah, because it's really one program with multiple sessions.
Which I think is a bit unusual, right? Because mostly a program is one session. Is that
Or
fair?
three, like if you did
Well,
that.
then you have
No,
wired
no,
Wednesdays. for
yeah, we've
example.
got weekly programs, and so we report the statistics for each, and that same reporting form, it'll count each as an individual program.
To
I'm
Even though
happy
it's the
for it.
same,
To be there, I just, because I figured that program I attend was in there, I was curious.
yeah,
Unless we want to do programs and sessions,
Yeah,
because then it gives us better sense of the variety of programs you're doing.
because I wasn't sure it showed up in the Bolt. So we could talk about that, like the full value of that.
most of the Volt is, there are certain sections that will comment on the number of programs, but most of the sections, it's a number of attendees.
Okay, so seven, so that's good. I'm gonna tell Denise that her efforts to make sure we all sign in. Initiated by me and my dad.
It's, the other thing to consider too, is that we do have seniors who attend adult programs.
Right, and I figured that out, yeah.
But it's not, yeah, incorporated into this, so it's just reporting on programs for a specific demographic.
Okay, and this is, and you're counting programs as sessions.
Yes,
So maybe we need number of programs and sessions posted, so they're
Okay.
two separate figures.
that would be easy to do for this, but for every. I can do that though, yes, number of programs.
That's important position. For different discussion points, but it's
Mhm.
important to track, I think, both. You know, we're gonna report on them in different places, but
Mhm.
I think we're having both is important,
Okay.
because there's a variety of things.
Now, I was looking at this, I'm in a couple, I guess a couple of discussions around this, and one is the ones that are specific board items, we need to make sure we've got actions to make them happen this year. So that's one of my discussions, and I want to focus on the board ones. And then, Jen, you've also provided updates on some of these items. So maybe we can go through the update piece and see if there's any questions people have on,
Sure.
on that. Or if there's anything you in particular want to comment on.
Well, I may even have more since the package was published. So I'll just make sure my screen is on the first page here.
Is this where we would discuss the multi-use feasibility study?
We actually, as a different agenda item, don't we?
Yes, I'll do a
Okay.
verbal update.
Yeah, it's under F2, number 3.
Okay. Because the reason that I bring it up, and I know it's a CEO, is that I'm not sure just saying how many meetings were attended is,
Which item is it on the action plan?
sorry, 2.1 CH2 multi-use spaces. And it's objective 2.1 community hubs.
And so your question is whether the third item, actively participate in the committee, and whether the number of meetings attended and evidence of advocacy, ongoing communication about the project to the board and the community. So those,
I was just shocked when I read the overview of the project. So if Joanne hadn't sent that out, I wouldn't have picked that up from this. Oh, 5 meetings, isn't that great? Do you know what I mean? So,
Mhm. So why don't we wait till we have the actual discussion?
Yeah.
And then we come back, we want to edit the measure. So is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of measures, to date, accomplishments, I guess?
I think there are just a few things marked as in progress that will be complete by the next meeting. So I've mentioned the replacement of the public access computers. We have a few replaced right now, we're just testing them out. But I won't actually really comment or change the status of that until the entire thing's finished. The other item that I will speak a little bit about, is the films for the museum. Some of the initial work has happened, the actual filming hasn't started yet. And that is something that is sort of to be determined. There's a lot of different factors, but just looking at the measures for those two projects, complete on time and on budget, I'm still very hopeful, but, that may be something that I will flag right now. Now that we're at the end of June already.
Sorry, which one is that?
It is under, just flip to the page, I think. ES 1.1, yeah. I also have started the blog posts, so even though quarterly posts were at the end of June, my intention is to at least have 4 completed by the end of the year. And I did run an idea past Lori, and Mary, our manager of community engagement, where essentially we're going to try and integrate a micro survey into every single blog post that'll be relevant to data that we're trying to capture, but also what's included in the blog post itself. So the first blog post will go out in our July e-newsletter at the beginning of July, and it's about space as a service, commenting on, some of the things we've talked about, how, the library is no longer just this space that houses books, like a lot of those common themes, and then that'll be an opportunity for us to collect some sort of data around how people use the space or what they would like to see in the space, which could then feed into some of the conversations we have in the future about space needs, pending what we hear from the community.
So do we have that activity noted anywhere, or does that just get encompassed under the published blog post? And that's an additional
Yeah,
sort of piece.
it is, yeah. It's related, it's not actually captured in the action plan, just the blog posts are.
Do we want to add something? Maybe you should get recognition for that, because that's a great idea.
Yeah,
You know what, we have it under. Community hubs 2.1 refers to current space utilization, articulating. Requirements and options for expansion. I think part of articulating requirements. It's getting,
the information.
yeah, so maybe one of the.
Yeah, it almost, because every blog post is gonna be a different topic. We could probably come up with and should add, so every time that we need public input, we can add, integrate blog or online surveys. I mean, I think we'll get into probably find this every single thing you're doing. I agree that it should be called out because it's a great initiative. It's really, and it's a great way to get the information, but I feel like it's gonna be.
General lines.
And it might be. Either reducing barrier, it might be under the facility expansion and where we're talking about understanding the needs.
But no, I like your idea better, Joanne. It's just that you're using the blog post as a tool to gather information, so it should be recognized somewhere.
Why don't we, for simplicity's sake, why don't we just stick with where the blog post is and add a measure about survey responses or number, I don't know.
Yeah, there's blog post in this for some reason.
2.1.
ES
ES2, 2.1,
1.1,
ES2.
published blog post, educating community on. So you could say quarterly, like, is this where you could also just put a line in there, gather data or something through surveys, just put that as a separate action item under quarterly posts? And then include, user survey for information gathering, and then you've got recognition for that.
And then the measure is number of respondents.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
So usefulness of the information, but then you get into a whole discussion of how you define usefulness, so we won't go there.
Thank you.
Tell them you've got experience.
Anything else you want to say about this stuff? Ken? And while she's thinking about, it, do we have any other questions? I have a couple, but I would wait on that. Not see any from anybody else, so.
I do have
You do?
one, there is, create public signage regarding appropriate
So
behavior.
where is that? That is,
That is under OE 2.3.
right,
And that, so this, we created our own signage. I had the management team look it over. And before we launched it, we were contacted by the municipality because they're actually launching their own sign. And so basically my plan is to do both. So we're waiting on these new signs from the municipality, so everything is consistent at all town facilities. There's a little, it's very brief, and there's like a QR code on their signage where the signs that we were working on as a management team is more so specifically outlining
Behaviors. right?
behaviors, yeah, so, I anticipate that will all be posted by the next meeting,
so are you still outlining the behaviors even though like the town stuff has?
yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. And that's, I mean.
Yeah. I have a question about,
Sorry, before we leave that, you have locations that you're gonna post in?
Yes. Some identified.
Some of,
We're sort of going back and forth between whether or not, like how much do we want to put this out there? It's important, but we also don't want to risk being this
In
space
your
where it's like,
face.
don't do this,
Yeah,
don't do this, and then people are sort of, so it's kind of finding that balance.
okay,
Yeah, but the signage that the municipality has created will definitely go at the circulation desk. I'll have to wait until we have both of them sort of side by side to see where I can strategically place it. The computers are another really great area to post the behavior, and there is specific mention of computer use. And that's really where we get a lot of our children rowdiness, things like that, story tower, food and drink, that kind of thing, so. Yeah, there are
front
kind of-
door, would you put it on the front door?
probably the municipalities, I would think, yeah.
Who's working on that?
Communications
Okay.
and. I think
HR?
clerks might, or maybe HR, yeah.
Yeah, probably HR.
So Jennifer, just for clarity, you're thinking that you'll do a separate library one and then a separate town one?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And they're both pretty different, but they basically say.
the overall message is the same.
Yeah.
Makes sense though, to wait, in my opinion, anyways, yeah, wait till the town one comes, because there's no sense in duplicating anything either, right?
Okay,
Did they give you a time, sorry, did they give you a timeline or?
They contacted me, I think it was almost a month ago. So they just had to like, they're going to print more for the library, so I'm assuming they're just waiting for them to come in.
Okay.
Yeah,
If it's another month, let me know and I can
okay.
make a call.
It was freezing in here the other day. Yeah, why is it so hot? The air conditioning went on?
well, it also got cooler outside, so, yeah,
Maybe.
we're going
Do you
through one of
want
those.
I don't even
Not
know.
knowing how to dress.
I brought a sweater just in
I-
case. Oh, nice. Right. Okay, sorry, it's just.
Pull up your fan, yeah.
Do you have water?
Of tea, which might not be. All right. I don't need to-
Okay. It might be worse if I open the window.
Actually, that feels better.
You just got a little breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really helps having the door open.
Yeah.
Okay, I was looking at CH 2.1. And I don't, maybe flip up to the screen on that as well, just, I don't, recall if you give us an update on that, no.
2.1?
Yeah, so that's my question, is regarding reviewing current space utilization, blah, blah, blah. And where that is at the moment.
So right now, we're collecting statistics on how many times we have to decline a request to use our space. We're doing that for both the public and staff. I also think that there are a couple other action items that will feed into this. So the accessibility feasibility report, which is in progress, and I will do a verbal update later in the agenda. And the multi-use recreation feasibility assessment, I think will also feed into this specific action. We're going to have a managers meeting in July, once we have our full management team back, to talk about like our staff workspace specifically, to show, we're essentially going to brainstorm, can we actually find a solution with the space that we have right now? And if not, then so that conversation will happen in July.
And I think we also talked about, there was that gap analysis report, and that,
The updated one that you,
yeah,
Yeah.
that gave you. So I'm not sure if that's the vehicle in which you're going to pull it all together.
yes, and that, all of that information, including the updated one that you had shared with me, has also been shared with the consultants working on the accessibility feasibility report. The multi-use, so it will all feed together.
All
Yeah,
together, a
Yeah.
bunch of spots.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think there is a small section in that report that also addresses the staff workspace, so.
And because we also identified as, once that all is pulled together, there's a step where we would be presenting this to council and other key partners, so that I guess is later down the line when we have it all pulled together. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask, sorry, how you're calculating, when you have to turn people away? Like, is there a form?
Yeah, well, we're manually doing it, so we've got something posted here and at the depot. And all staff know, because we all deal with the public asking for, rentals, or is this available? So everyone is just manually recording.
Okay, I
When that
just wanna make
happens.
sure that, because I've said to you several times that there's no process by which to ask for space officially that we know of from the seniors fitness. Like, we've asked, but it's not like we filled out a form. I'm just wondering, like, how does that get collated? Like, how do we make sure? Like, are we down as having asked for additional space?
So has the instructor for the group actually mentioned this to staff? Do you know? That's typically how it would work.
But I've asked, yeah, and it's not about that. I think I just wanna make sure that there's a process, because I don't think there is, at least from our perspective, there's no process.
Like, you mean like request a room?
Yeah,
Like a
there's
booking
no-
form?
So are there other people that sort of wander up to the desk and say, can I have, can we get another booking?
Yes. Well, we get requests either in person, over the phone.
Okay, as long as they're all captured, that's
Yes.
all, because I haven't felt that there was a process for that. So I'm just querying whether it's more informal.
So maybe it's more, they're recording the request, but how does the requester get information back? And is that recorded?
Yeah.
So has your person requested? and then been denied, and that's been recorded that they were denied because the space wasn't available, or whatever the reason was.
Yeah, it's really just about process.
Yeah, so those are grammar case.
I just wanna double check our website, to make sure that I'm also, like, I know all of this, yeah,
Rentals?
so you can also, so say you wanna book the gallery,
Oh.
there is an online form.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I did not know that.
Okay, right.
I was about to say that, but I just
Wow.
wanted to double check to make
Most
sure.
things are on the website, but
We're
we all
gonna
have to
get
go. we all have
35
to
people
ask.
now.
But the reality is, it's not, you know, it's gonna be something here, so the point.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
rather than
okay.
taking down the manual.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
Joanne, something?
Yeah, I had a question, just so about this overall project and in that, in my mind, this is more than the multi-use
Yes.
facility study, so I get worried, I get concerned when we combine them and when we're waiting for that information, not that it's. So, I don't know how to articulate this, there was more than just a multi-use need, there are challenges with this space, there are challenges like with our existing space. And so one question is there a way to reutilize the space we have to address needs? The other is expand it. Do we need more space? And if we had more space, what would we do? So I just want to make sure that we have line of sight on two different space needs. And then secondly, I think because it's a rather large project, if you're leading it and we're supposed to report on it, I think establishing a project charter, timeline, all that kind of stuff is really important so that we know, okay, and so we're all in alignment and or if we hear things or if we can add information, et cetera, so that it's just, because at this point, without, it's like, oh, we're gonna present at some point. Well, if we know that we have to present in December or whatever the budget is,
Yeah.
back to the budget thing. If there is a specific timeline that we should be presenting an aspect of this, then we should have it, and this is just my project management brain jumping in, but we should probably have a plan on that.
so initial conversations for budget from a staff perspective are starting in August. I know the library is a little bit different, but even still, other departments, that's when the conversations are happening, the pitches are happening at a staff level. I'd be happy to put together a project charter for the July meeting.
I think it's the whole project, we have an expansion need,
Yeah,
And-
I agree.
so we need to define what it is we're trying to do.
Yeah,
Like the goals of the like, so if we were to have a committee or we were to have people working on it, what are they gonna do? And what are, you know, even if it's just at this point, high level key dates. So
Yeah.
that we know whether we can meet them, what information have, so if you need to do 2 blog posts a month. In
Yeah.
order to get more information, or we need more information, I think that would be really helpful to inform that.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, because it would be wonderful if at the end of us doing all our work, the multi-use feasibility came along and said, oh, okay, we can accommodate all that, but in reality, it's years out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that there's also the timeline, of this, right?
Yeah.
Which aspect of it?
Well, even the project is only this year, right? We need space.
Yeah, we have. approved
Yesterday.
Talk about
for-
that being 20 years out.
Yeah,
Yeah, so anyway, I'm just.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that, you get need. Future need with more space.
once we get to the vote too, there's a mention of space too that I'll talk about.
Great.
But yeah, I will have a project charter done for July.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm going through the ones that are specifically board to make sure we have a way of making that happen. And the next one I have is OE 1.1. And these are the 2 evaluation instruments.
So did we talk about CH 1.2? Revised plan policies with
CH
IDA, like the CEO on board.
No, we didn't, because I see that as being the CEO lead on it.
Okay,
Yeah, so I'm just saying at ones that are,
okay, no problem. We're back to 2.1, okay.
So no one liked the board evaluation instrument last fall, which is fine. I didn't like it either. We have not really established a CEO evaluation. We haven't set up goals, objectives beyond the action plan. I think this is pretty comprehensive in that regard, and I'd be happy to see a CEO evaluation that basically is framed around these things and, you know, the accomplishment of these objectives. I certainly see CEO performance as being identical to organizational performance, and this is where we're putting our organizational performance stuff on paper. But I think the board one, I think that's pretty consistent with what's happened in the past with the CEO. The board one, I think I'd like to see it run the same way, like go
So
through
can you
this.
just, because I haven't been involved in this, can you just say how the CEO one works?
Basically, we set up objectives and then we say, did you achieve the objectives? And I'm saying that these are the objectives.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like why overcomplicate anything?
Yeah,
didn't- We
exactly.
didn't do one because,
Well, we didn't bother with Sabrina because she was
Yeah,
leading.
yeah, so-
Yeah.
yeah,
And so what I'm suggesting is for the CEO one, we may just want to say, this is the framework, and the measure will be, no, the process that's, I guess the question becomes, do we want to do a process where there's the chair and the CEO meet with the chair and the vice chair meet with the CEO to discuss it? Or is it so, could we just have a board discussion in November? How'd this go? Are we gonna hit all our targets? Or do we want to have a bit of discussion separate from a board?
So is the CEO evaluation like a performance,
Performance
Yeah.
review.
plan?
Yeah, and I was gonna say that from us at council, that's what we do with the CAO evaluation as well every year. But obviously he leaves the room, but
Yeah,
we have the discussion,
The entire council.
just for example, right? And there's and to your point too, the short work is done by the mayor and the deputy mayor, I believe. But other than that, yeah, everything just gets gone over and that's when we decide, you know, they call it bonusing and stuff. It's not bonuses, anyway,
just from a process perspective, and I think what would be good is if either you two come forward with something and we discuss it as a board.
Yeah.
Minus Jennifer, or we start with a clean slate and then all of us discuss it and then you two summarize it and then you Jen. But I think the full board should be, and I don't know if you were going that way, but I think the full board should be part of that discussion.
Okay, well, I can go to the instrument we're currently using, which is pretty. Or I can look at that procedure as it is, and maybe we can look at that procedure at the July meeting as well. And go from there.
And you'll send that out before the meeting as part of the packaging. We'll have a chance to review it before the July meeting.
And if I don't get it done in time, it'll be on the September meeting.
But then the evaluation is November, okay, yeah, there's still time.
There's some time,
Yeah, okay.
and is it only the concrete things that are listed here? What if Jennifer had some personal goals and objectives that she had set, like, let's just say she wanted to go, you wanted to go back to school or something, which I'm not suggesting you need to, but like, where would more personal elements that we might want to consider? Leadership,
It's actually in the instrument we're currently using, but I will, let me start with that. So I'll take a
Okay,
look at what we're
yeah,
currently
okay.
using, and then,
so it isn't just what's in here then?
that's. Yes, I mean, let's come back to it in July, okay?
Yeah. And then you're thinking that the board would do the self-assessment in the same way.
I think so.
Okay, so why don't we save that discussion for July when we see what the tool is for the CEO, and then see if we can apply that to the board.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, I have a very different perspective on evaluation, performance evaluations than a lot of people, like frankly, I'd like Jennifer to do her own evaluation and bring it to us. I'm just,
July.
okay.
I think it's already all there in
Okay.
terms of personal, well,
Yeah.
organizational process.
We'll see
Yeah.
what's there.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so on the July agenda, hopefully we'll have it done in time. The July agenda. Okay. CEO evaluation process procedure. And we'll also then take a look at, we'll have at least a discussion on the board evaluation
I think that sounds like a good path forward.
procedure. Okay. Okay. And then, the next one is OE 2.2, which is the Evaluate Ontario Library Toolkit, so that's on today's agenda. And then we have other charitable status, so something happens on that. Then the next one is OE 4.1, semi-annual meetings with our council partners. And that will probably end up being bold. That'll be our next main topic, I think. So, that we can have under a vote discussion.
Okay.
And in fact, I think the last one that we have is OE 5.2, which is the key influencers and developing community plan with priority groups, and that we might then take the vote and carry it on as a way of connecting with people.
And to the expansion.
Yes. So I think it's too early to have a discussion on 5.2 at this stage, but it's something we need to come back to in the fall.
So I'm just wondering, back to the performance management. How are we tracking all of this? Like, so is this like in minutes, or do we have more of a formal, like, would we set up maybe a project management page or something that you'd have all the specific board actions, and then where we're at on it, rather than sort of adding little things to the action plan? Does that sound like a?
Well, in the past, what we've had is under measures, we've actually also had measures has been also accomplishment, or when it's been done. So that's shown up onto the action plan. We've also used to have a column for timing, which we haven't tried to add yet because we only have 6 months left, and no point spending time.
Yeah, so I just want to be able to sort of capture this somehow. Like, so you're saying we'll use Volt to connect with people. Well, to me, once we've decided that we're gonna do that, then we have to sort of have a whole action plan.
Oh, yeah.
Who's gonna connect, who's gonna do it, who's got the responsibility
Yes.
to move forward, and that to me is more detailed than what would be in this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So we get to an implementation process for some of the big items. Yeah, then there'd be a whole,
Okay.
like the charter concept.
Yeah, 'cause I was like, sometimes, yeah, like a project charter is a good thing, but sometimes you don't need a project charter for everything, then you get hung up on the project management, takes more time to do than the actual action that you're doing, so I don't wanna.
Yeah,
go
don't
down that road, but we
overcomplicate
need
it.
to have some way of recording
Mhm,
what we're doing and how we're planning it, and who's sort of doing what and all that,
mhm. Yes, I agree.
so.
I think when it comes to, well. So no. I'm thinking we take the example of the identify key influencers, develop community plan with priority groups. So I could see that becoming a topic that has, who are key influencers, what we want to take to them, when we want to take it to them, who's going to do it.
So we can do some of that work before we figure out what we're gonna do with the vote, right? Have we
Oh.
identified the key influencers, like have we,
The last board spent quite a bit of time on it,
okay,
and we can pull that back up and bring it forward to another meeting. I don't think it would be July. And then have, I guess maybe redo that discussion with this group, but there's a lot of groundwork that's already there.
yeah, we just didn't get to it really in year one, because
No,
we had Sabrina leaving and we had the
yeah,
whole Craig leave.
yeah, we had a lot of things tackle us,
Mhm.
yeah.
I can always upload that to SharePoint
Okay,
in advance of a discussion too, just so you have an idea. I would just have to find it. It might even be on there.
Or maybe we can put on our September agenda. A key influencers discussion, at least to
Yeah.
bring that forward as a topic.
so I guess this will come out of the vote discussion, but we would then sort of have key messages and a sort of set presentation that every individual person would use when the meeting.
No, we didn't get.
We
that
didn't get
detail.
that far. The other group talked about, you know, who were, we had, you know, red, green, yellow.
Yeah.
So who, yeah, so then how do we move a group that's red to yellow, or how to move the yellows to the green, and how do we support
Yeah,
greens?
okay, yeah,
And then what are the topics we want to take to each of these groups, and how do we accomplish that? So it's fairly three-dimensional.
and that's in the package that you're gonna, on SharePoint?
I'll have to find it and I can put it up there. But the discussion will happen in September.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I'm just thinking about this conversation, would it help, and I don't know if you wanna put it as an action item, but it feels like we put the cart before the horse, we're identifying who we wanna speak to before we say what we want to talk about, and I'm just wondering if the first item, and we should probably have this something going, is as the board, identify priority topics for the coming year, because it'll take, you know, for the coming year with our community, so we should identify what we think are those priorities. And then starting to understand, A, more about what that means, and B, who it is we might need, you know, in terms of support, or who might have challenges. Just thinking like that high level item. And as a board action, and that will also then influence obviously the CEO, when we ask the CEO.
Okay, so I've noted priority topics as a part of our key influencers discussion.
Yeah, because, I mean, the way I would see it happening down the road is we would have one set presentation, we would identify sort of which board members would meet with which stakeholders, and some stakeholders, no, that's not the correct word anymore. But, so some stakeholders we wouldn't need to meet with because they're 100% behind, so they would be the green ones. Except you can't always ignore them because sometimes. they
No,
come
but you
together.
still want to make sure they have the information that.
Yeah, so it would be a different type of interaction with them versus somebody who's.
Mhm. And that might be a very different interaction if we're talking about, let's say one of the topics of priority is expansion in Craiglee. Well, there'd be people who are green, yellow, and red based on location.
Yes, yeah.
As well,
yeah,
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 so
Okay.
it becomes quite a complex discussion, and how do we, but you're right, I mean, doing it by topic
Yeah.
actually makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
And if we have this discussion in September, does that give us enough time, or are we still? When does our year end? December?
End of December, I said before, I think some of these things are multi-year
Okay.
items,
Okay,
yeah, but I'm glad, I want them on the agenda now, you know, if we don't get too far along in the actual implementation, because we can start to lay out really our action plan for the following year.
yeah, okay.
You know, the whole like 4-year cycle really sort of gets in the way too, right? Like, because you end up with a new board and we'll be relooking at the strategic plan too, won't we, nearly? Yeah. So we could be in the same boat, giving a whole bunch of thought into something and then a new board comes in.
New
And,
council comes in, and that's another
yeah,
piece, I mean, we've gotten so far along in
Yeah.
discussions with the one council, and you find yourself back here and you have to build that
But again, I
relationship
think that's
again.
why identifying those priorities, and then you're each year deciding, are there still the priorities, how far have we got, and because we are talking a 4-year period. And
yeah.
in the second year, you're kind of are probably better able to articulate what those are. The first
Yeah,
year,
and
like,
poor Lori, you were the only carryover.
Yeah,
So what if we suppose that we would have a project charter and it would depend on the activity, it doesn't have to be like a detailed project charter, but we would have some type of project charter for each board to. That would then outline the steps.
some of them I think are pretty straightforward, I mean, I think the evaluation one is gonna be pretty much done, I think at the next meeting.
Okay,
I don't think we need
Need a
anything,
charter, yeah.
yeah,
so that's more an internal one.
Yeah,
but then sort of the other external.
well, things like both, yeah, the bigger ones, expansion. And really, those are big topics,
Yeah,
right?
they are.
And, they actually kind of.
They link, because the goal was our
Yes, so,
methodology to prove we were adding a lot of value and could do more.
so maybe your project
Yeah.
charter that you've already said you start working on grabs both of those topics.
So we're thinking of a project charter then for the, space usage one, the bold one, and then the.
Well, they're kind of linked though. See,
Well, on the stakeholder, see, I think that's linked,
Yeah.
that's sort of,
So are you combining the bold? See, I don't know if you would wanna, I guess you could.
it was
Gee.
deliberately asked before we could get past go or past start with council to even entertain any discussion about more space, was that we prove our value.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So it's a.
it was very timely for us, this initiative, but we've been waiting for it and,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, the appetite is still there to know more.
Yeah.
Which is good. I think it's
yeah,
positive
it's
stuff.
good.
It's, frustrating for everybody involved because, but once it's together, it can be together. And then my colleagues will have the information that they're seeking.
Okay, so if I go through the whole action plan, then the ones that we would consider doing the charter for.
The charter needs to be on one page.
It could be,
But
but-
I know what we're trying to do.
So the revised board CEO evaluation instruments to accomplish so that, we're not gonna do a charter because that's an internal thing and we're gonna discuss that next meeting. The assist in council employment board meetings, so that's done, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, June's a numbers person. She wants to see data.
I captured some of the comments at council, when we did the year in review presentation. And, so one of them was, average daily use.
Right.
Would they ask for that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard to capture in the sense that use physically coming into a building, use on the website.
Yeah.
So I mean, it takes a little bit of thought to figure out how to capture that kind of
Well,
thing.
we did all that though, for that presentation, before you started, where,
A lot of it is done, they use, yeah.
like, we went through that data. Defined use.
So what is OE 2.2? Apply the value imperial as the goal. Integrate results into council on public presentations. Okay, so that is a board and CEO. Together, but that would be something that we would do a charter for, or not?
I think, yes, I think that's sort of, but I think it's let's say it's part A.
Okay,
And part B is then, what does that mean in terms of our, space concerns?
Mhm.
And that will be B, and then part C is how do we speak to council? How do we speak to community about these? And that becomes the key influencer.
so you could, okay, so A is the bold. B is the space concern, and then C is the stakeholder engagement, which council would be one of them,
Mhm,
okay. And you would see that all in one charter, or,
I do,
okay?
partly because of Joanne's comment that it's topic driven.
Yeah, they're all, in. I see how they're all.
In terms of what we're, again, just back to what our role is.
Just the board's role,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
In
Okay,
term-
and that captures them all, doesn't it?
So that would be
Yes.
one charter?
I think that's
Yes,
what Lori's thinking.
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Which would be fine, because then you'd have your action and your dates and your.
Yeah, because the Bolt is really just data to inform our arguments.
Yeah, I mean, there are other considerations around it, but I think that's more conversation with CEO.
And that's this same charter coming to the board in July?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
I'm just
yeah.
making sure I'm on the same page. Okay.
If you want a hand,
Yeah, I'll definitely get a couple eyes on it before.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to take a look at it.
Okay,
Yeah, and that would be good, because then we have something. Delineated.
Concrete to work
Yeah,
off with?
yeah.
Okay,
And it'll help us not overlap with what you're doing.
yeah, I actually feel less overwhelmed about all of the things now that there's, yeah, this is a
And-
great idea.
I like the advocacy part of it. I think that's a good thing.
and
The being open on Sundays thing, that should be a really easy one to delineate operating costs. You know, times.
I haven't even mentioned that one, yeah.
Yeah,
Were
well,
they
and
on
I think
that
that'll
again?
feed into a micro survey. I have an
Oh,
idea for that too.
I think it's
Yeah.
great.
I mean, you get a lot of people at the counter asking, nobody's really asking, except for one person.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Especially
or one or two people. And the operating costs,
people are like.
it's budget.
Yeah,
So it's an interesting, sorry, side conversation.
Yeah, so I just want to say, so the other comments that I picked up on, and I just emailed this to you,
okay.
is, so the average daily use. There was also question of, the council was interested in individual use, in the sense is how many individuals use the library. So you can have, so a person be counted,
So
once,
unduplicated.
but they could, yeah, unduplicated, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you have the ability to
That's difficult.
pull that out. Anyway, that's just what you think about.
We thought about all that.
We've,
Yeah.
we've conveyed that
answers for
information, the door counter and stuff
They
like that.
just forgot.
It is difficult to get unduplicated.
Yeah,
That's the only challenge, because we don't,
Yeah.
we're not at,
Yeah.
again, you could take a proxy from per use. But again, I mean, it's a detail, to say, how can we address it, we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or
Well-
take the total and you've already got the numbers from last year, take the total and divide it by 12 and by. however
We do
many,
the
6.
typical survey
That's how many days, or that's,
every year too, but
that's your average.
That's
But
what we
we're
talked
yeah, we're
about.
getting asked it again and again though, so obviously we're not getting through.
They're not listening to the, yeah, they're not understanding, I hear.
Yeah, so we have to, and the notes I took down were from two counselors, so we can actually bring those up in terms of the individual meetings as well. Sunday opening, what is the cost of opening on Sunday? That was another question that was asked. And whether the library would consider it for the 2025 budget. Then another counselor talked about, do we have oversubscribed programs and
Yes.
undersubscribed programs and why? Yeah,
Sorry.
she wondered about charging a small fee to register to ensure attendance.
John's fine.
Yeah.
We do charge a small, you do charge a small fee, it just that it's voluntary with what people put in the fitness, there's a donation, right?
well, the suggestion was actually charging a fee, I believe, for canceling.
Yeah.
Right, or not,
Oh, I
No,
wrote down,
not
I
for
wrote
the-
down fee to register to ensure attendance. And that would avoid cancellations, but I'm not sure we have a cancellation problem.
Why are they
No.
getting into the weeds like this?
Because that's what they do.
Well, and because if
Yeah,
we say we
everybody.
can't afford to have somebody, if we can't afford to be open on a Sunday, then immediately people go to problem solving. So, yes, if you can charge fees, however, we are only allowed to charge fees for certain things.
Yeah.
That's the role of a library, so,
That's legislation.
that's just part of that. But it, again, valid questions, very valid questions.
and I think the vote will hopefully
Yeah.
help put a number on these
Yes.
intangible things that we're constantly trying to communicate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
so I think that was the discussion I wanted to have around action plan, is that?
That's good.
Good, okay.
I just wanted to, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, I listened to the presentation, which is great. There was also, sorry, not well attended, there was also the call out about, programs and, young people not having somewhere to go. So I think that's also something, again, our numbers will show it and reinforce that we really don't have the space.
Mhm. And we know it's an issue, yeah,
Yeah, so I thought that.
the
was
space
a good-
issue.
That was a good comment.
Okay. Then our next topic It's going to be a bit messy. We're into community hubs. And Jen, you've got 3 verbal reports to share with us.
The first on the Arts Walk, just very quickly, things are going very well, lots of collaboration between library and municipality, which has been great. Some of you are volunteering, some of council are volunteering. And we tried to organize an in-person session. I believe we will be canceling and pivoting to just sharing information. And then if anyone wanted to book like a one-on-one with Mary, we can do that. There's been a little bit of pushback from some
Can I
volunteers.
just make a comment on that, because I got that email?
So we don't-
5 hours is a big time commitment during the day for volunteers to come forward. Just, I looked at that and went, that's huge. So if you maybe even had like an hour at night or something, might be a little bit more, but.
This is the issue we're running into with this particular event, is there's a lot of liability. And like Mary and I tried to condense so much information, and it's just, it got to the point where we had that discussion.
Yeah.
We anticipated there would be some pushback. But yeah, we will be canceling the in-person session
Okay,
this year.
Well, I mean, it's too bad because you probably put a lot of time and effort into figuring out what you do in those 5 hours, but just as a general comment, 5 hours is a huge commitment for,
It is,
on top of committing to volunteer at the event. To
yeah,
come in for 5 hours of training is huge.
Well, that wasn't all. I mean, there was also the 40-minute AODA thing you're supposed to watch, and then a whole list of policies to read. I think it was, I was shocked too. My sort of gut reaction was, oh, I committed to a day.
Yeah.
I didn't commit
Yeah.
to 3 days. Sorry, Joanne.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a question on it, and this is getting into operations, but, and just as a thought. If there are specific roles that really need certain, so if you have volunteers who are definitely going to be helping people on and off buses. Or, in and out of certain places that require that, you know, that have a higher level of liability risk. Or just need more information, it might be helpful if you have people sign up for different roles first. And then get them, you know, and then you can assign, maybe it might be easier, then you can have just those groups, make sure that they've either read it. Or have an hour, and maybe you have an hour open for questions. As opposed to presenting and requiring them to come, you're there, you're online, if people have questions, they can, you know, okay, I read this, I'm not quite sure what it means. I've been in events and that's been really helpful, where some people are fine, they read it, they get it, great. Others are like, oh, I'd really love to have that open session of just questions.
Well, and also
it might
maybe
be
some
just-
idea that which positions require, you have to do 4 hours of preparation for this position, or you have to have a first aid, or you have to have these policies.
Mm.
And maybe, you know, the staff people who already have all that stuff under their belt, they should be doing the roles that are more intensive in those areas. And then the volunteers are
Volunteers.
that are expected to put in a couple of days in advance of the day.
yeah,
I
I
might,
think
sorry,
you can go.
I was gonna say, I might recommend it, because like that list of training, I did that right off the hop, being on board on the council. Along with the enormous amount of, you know, this is a very steep learning curve of everything. So, but it is good for the term, right? So maybe that's something to incorporate, because this board could undertake those trainings, that training, it's online.
Most already have.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah, it looked overwhelming in the email, but a majority of volunteers, like
already have.
oath of confidentiality is already signed, certain policies have been reviewed. But this is really good feedback, and I'll make sure Erin and I chat about it afterward too.
So does everybody on the board have all that training then, the AODA and all that
Well,
stuff?
that's also, I looked at it, I think I've done that.
Yes.
Have I?
Okay.
Did I
We
do it?
reviewed the policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
the oath of confidentiality, definitely, I would assume at the beginning of the term,
Yeah.
AODA.
So why is a volunteer for the day signing on the confidentiality? What are they gonna be exposed to that they would have to keep confidential?
I guess it would be That's a really good question.
Depends on the role.
It depends on the role
Yeah.
and feedback
Somebody-
into,
somebody's
yeah, I know that's a very good point.
personal Information about signing up for something, or
Yeah.
the artist need to sign up, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. Like, depends on the role, who needs to sign.
That's the thing. like,
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw that
That's a
list,
good
I was like,
question.
I did the same. I saw that list and I wrote back to Mary and I was like, I think I've already done all that,
Yeah.
right?
I think I'm glad I
But-
wasn't the one who read it that way.
But it would be,
I didn't respond.
I didn't either.
No, I didn't respond to even, to being a volunteer, because I was like, I can't even think 3 weeks ahead. So, I'm kind of glad I didn't. Do you still need volunteers?
We do not, but if you wanna participate, you're more than welcome to.
and then, I still would have participated in this meeting, but that's unfortunately booked on the day that we have committee of the whole. So neither
Yeah.
Councilor Porter and I could participate. We wanted to, but it's
We
okay.
kind of strategically did that too, knowing,
Oh,
because we knew that counselors had already done most of the training.
right. That's okay.
I won't get into all of the details for why it ended up being the Tuesday, but it's not happening.
It's off.
But you will get your t-shirts.
Well, I felt really badly for, like, I want to be committed, but I didn't commit another whole day.
But I think a lot of us had that reaction is,
Yeah,
oh.
it is a very common reaction, yes,
Good.
but I will share all this feedback, that's good feedback.
I don't remember this last year.
I don't think we were asked to participate last year. It's just, it's.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
We
it
were
just
told when the
happened.
day
It was probably a bit bigger, because that was the first year. wasn't it?
Yeah, so we're really building on the momentum, but also we didn't have a manager of community engagement last year, so that position oversees our volunteer program. So there's a lot more attention being sort of,
Yeah.
in overseeing all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, but this is all really good feedback.
Did you see the big board communications put at town hall too?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
to work together that way, right? Because it's
We
nice.
did the designs and they actually are paying for the Curvex signs, which is
Oh, right.
awesome, yeah. So we're also capturing, and this will come back to the board too, but just how much the municipality has been stepping in to support even financially for the event. That'll be part of the debrief afterward too, like, there's a lot of work that has gone into it, this year, so.
And now we're, yeah, good.
We will be doing a joint media release about the event, and that will go out on Monday.
Yeah, it's exciting, except for the 5-hour training session. I'm excited.
But it's not happening anymore.
Don't have to worry about it anyway.
We will send, though, we're going to put together just some kind of health and safety tips
Yeah.
try and get it to one
Especially
page.
if it's a hot day. you can
Yes.
put it on those.
Yeah. Can I move to the cultural map, or are there any other questions about? Okay.
No, I think it's a great initiative. I'm looking forward to it.
So our cultural map will launch at the beginning of July. We have 75 sites that will launch at that time, and then, of course, we anticipate it will grow with more community consultation and just donations of artifacts, stories, that sort of thing. Our museum curator, Alessia, presented to council on Tuesday, June 11th. And it was very well received. We also were featured in Collingwood Today again for that project, so that was the second time. And Alessia has done quite a few interviews. Specifically, there's just a lot of interest in the cultural map, so it's drawn a lot of really positive attention to the depot. She's going to continue to do community consultation throughout the summer, but there isn't, we don't have all of the dates selected just yet, but mostly just popping up in the community to talk to people, where right now, everything that we've planned so far is drop-in sessions here. So now we're going to take it out into the community.
Can I ask a question about it? Just because I came in, I had a question for her, and there was somebody sitting here, and it was amazing. This woman had so much stuff, and I think it's awesome. I don't know, but I would like to propose that we actually include the hours of those drop-in sessions and the number of people who come as part of volunteer hours. Because what we have from a community engagement, and this is about social cohesion and engagement, is what we have is people literally volunteering hours of their time to not only collect it, which we can't count, but come in here. I'm thinking if Alessia sat for an hour or two with somebody from the community, they volunteer 2 hours of their time to bring to us information. I don't know if it qualifies, but it's like they're literally volunteering to support the library initiative. And even though they might not see it that way, but it is, I mean, because they don't have to. They could literally sit in their house and keep all their stuff and not share it with anybody and not, so I'm just sort of proposing it as a thought in terms of volunteer or capturing it in some way in terms of the community engagement. Because it's a lot for someone to come and sit here and share what they know or what they've heard from family and fill in forms, and I don't know, I just feel like it's whether it's community engagement or volunteer time, I feel like it should be captured because it's really
I
significant.
think it's more community engagement.
I would agree.
And sort of to add to that whole thing, are they getting anything like maybe a letter from the CEO that says, thank you so much for your contribution or something? Has there been any type of discussion on recognizing somehow that they,
No, I don't think so. But that's a good suggestion.
I know we used to send stuff out and people would always love to get a nice letter from the director rather than.
Mhm.
We definitely do that for monetary donations.
Okay.
But I don't think we've done that for like donations of items or artifacts.
Because to make this cultural map a success, it's really dependent on people bringing stuff forward.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I kind of dumped a whole lot of work on last week too. Because I was in the remaining Orange Lodge, our 150th anniversary was last year, but the project or the event coordinator was too busy last year, so it's 151. And so in my efforts to tidy and get things kind of ship-shape for Saturday, because we're having an open house and luncheon and all that at the Ravenna Hall, I found this suitcase underneath the bench. So I opened the suitcase and I pulled out this paper and I looked at it and I realized it was a membership list from 1879. And then I went, I shouldn't be touching this with my hands. So I very carefully folded it back up, put it back in the case, and I emailed Jen and Alessia, and everybody said, guess what I found? So I took the case down to them last week, and there's a mountain of like a really really cool historical documentation that gives exactly what the cultural map is about. It lists, people, where they were from. And what's really cool about the way they used to do things is that they always listed your occupation as well. So one of them that really caught the eye was in the 1880s, where Alessia probably answered better now, but they said taxi driver. Of all occupations, it said taxi driver. There was taxi driver, clerk. I'm not sure, but taxi driver, clerk.
In 1800s, but we can't get an Uber now.
I know. And he was from Croton Station, which is even, if you guys know where Croton Station is.
Yeah.
So, and because they also listed where you were from or where you lived. So, that to me was like that's like the pinnacle of like the cultural mapping of like to tie all these things together and to culminate like, that cross-reference of, even if there was a verbal story or what's it called? An oral story.
Yeah.
Well, that corroborates an oral story that, this guy was a member here. They did this, da, 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 da. Anyway, sidebar, but it was,
That's fine though.
it was so cool. And I was like, and there was even like lease agreements from the early days, like a lease agreement for the Thornbury Lodge at the time. Like, it was just a whole bunch of like this really awesome.
Well, I would hope, not for today, but I would hope that somehow that information on the names gets out. Like I talked to you about my ancestor who was
Order of the Orange and how I didn't know much about it, but for people that are doing their family history,
Mhm.
the names to know
Mhm.
that, like, that is gold.
It is,
It's not
it
just
is.
From
It's,
it's for the people, the descendants.
it's solid gold, really, because, and it's also, it's so interesting, because depending on who the recording secretary was that took down, they're called their annual, this document's called the annual, just the annual, being that every year this list gets sent to Grand Lodge. But, anyway, yeah, it's really, that's where I was like, yes, I sound like a history geek, but I love this stuff, right? And now they have it and I said, take your time, because it's a lot to like scan and copy and stuff, but really cool. Yeah. I had to take the case, because I had to, yeah, I left them the pile of documents, but I had to take the case, because it was a little gross. Yeah, Leslie was like, you're gonna have to take that home. I was like, okay, it's still in the back of my truck, actually.
So that came from our community engagement question and trying to capture some stats on that. So is there a way of doing that? Is it really saying to Alicia?
Well, I'm gonna have to think more about that. Like, we obviously will know how many hours that we dedicated to community consultation, how many people attended each session. But having to record how long per person
That's fine, I mean, that,
might be
yeah, that might be okay.
a little
Well,
much, but.
yeah.
No, I think you
That would be a
captured
total
it.
hours,
Yeah.
total hours of community engagement would be her time.
Yes,
Yeah,
And the number of people.
yeah,
I think
Okay.
that's,
and we are collecting that information.
that's great.
great. Anything else on the cultural map?
How does one find it? Like,
Once it's launched,
Yeah.
it'll
oh,
be.
it's not launched
It's
yet.
not launched yet,
Cause I
yeah,
could have
July.
sworn on MapQuest or something, it looked,
Because
I was seeing things.
when
and I was-
Leslie was doing the presentation as well, because she had to submit her information or submit her documentation to the clerks so that they could get it in. And she had a link, but because it's not launched, that's why she just was like, I'm just gonna keep talking, right? And while they figured it out, but it's in such a secure, that's what's really great about our IT is that link or that database is so well protected that there's very few people that have access to it, right? I
At
think
this
there's
point, yeah.
there's
But-
the CEO, her, the curator, and the clerk. But the town clerk are the only really 3 people that have that kind of secure access to it.
Yeah, but
But
how-
after launch, it'll be.
After it's
On
launched,
the
it's
web.
launched, it's open
But
to everybody.
how, like, what does that mean? Like, how?
It will be,
Let's be able to
you'll
edit.
go in the library, if you go on the library website and just type in cultural map, you'll see, so there's a information about it, and if you wanna submit and all the forms to submit information is there now.
No, I mean, like, as somebody wandering around sightseeing, how will that person know that, oh, they just stumbled upon the site of the first barn ever raised here or whatever, like, how will?
There have been discussions about installing signs at sites.
okay.
That hasn't really gone anywhere at this point, but Alessia is also planning on doing a physical map and basing it off of, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was West Gray or Hanover. But we have an example of a municipality that did something very similar, so there will be a physical piece to it, but we're just launching the digital map in July.
Okay, but so how will people, like,
So
when
they're-
they're looking at their MapQuest, they'll see
No.
something? Oh,
It would be, so if you go on the town's website,
so you have to go look for it?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be on both sites, but the town right now has a couple of GIS maps that the public can access and it'll be there. But yeah, once everything's launched, I'm sure we'll also think of other ways we can
get it.
creatively get it out to people. But just as of now, we're just, okay, the digital portion is launching in July and it'll be accessible on both the town and library's website.
So I noticed I asked this question, and what about, so your example of the barn, which
Yeah.
got the raise. Are we getting the owner's permission to put that on the land?
This, I think this came up at
Just
council
data,
too.
yeah.
So if, not necessarily, if someone were to ask us to take something down, we would, but so right now, if you go on Google Maps. Essentially, what would be available on the cultural map would be exactly what you could find on Google Maps. But there would be in the site information on the map, a notice that it is private property,
Okay.
that you're not to, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking of like what happened with the Bruce Trail during COVID. There was
Yeah.
people who took their private
Oh.
property off the Bruce Trail because
yeah,
there was
Oh,
Too
okay.
many.
too many people on it, there was garbage, they weren't respecting the private property, like it was a nightmare.
Right.
I'm sorry, everybody, I'm out of time.
Yes.
But that's good, okay, so.
Sorry about that. I will catch
Then
up
I
to you
take it back
later.
yourself.
Have a good rest of your meeting, sorry. Only be in one place at a time. Yeah.
Sorry, well, even, to put up a little sign that has a QR code on the, like, the depot places that we know are public.
Yes.
And then someone go, oh, okay, the QR code, so that rather than starting with the map, you start with the location, you go, what's this about? And
Yeah,
then that could then take you to the map.
And you might have private, like the first barn, maybe they're really proud of it and they'd love to have it.
maybe, yeah, that's how we know about it, because
Yeah.
somebody came
Yeah.
over and brought it to, yeah.
Or maybe somebody else said that barn over there and those people are like, no, we want our privacy. I know it was a big thing during COVID on the Bruce Trail. Cause
Okay.
nobody could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Can you note in the minutes that Sean left the meeting at 2:20?
Yeah.
Please.
I put 224.
2:24, okay, great. Anything else on the cultural map? Okay, why don't you move on to the multi-use recreation feasibility assessment?
Yes. Oh, yes, the MRFA. So I have been actively participating in bi-weekly meetings with the project team and the consultants. At the last meeting, my verbal update, just for those who weren't there and as a reminder, I mentioned that the contract was awarded to Colliers. And then that's when we had had our kickoff meeting, we started to schedule the bi-weekly touch bases. We had our most recent touch base yesterday where we did finalize an engagement plan. And so with that plan, there's still pieces that we'll have to discuss in terms of a detailed activity plan. But what I can share with the board is that there will be focus groups. Tons and tons of community consultation is a very, very important piece of the project. The focus groups are aimed to take place in August and September. I don't have official dates, just that specific broad timeline. There will also be interviews with board members and with council that they're hoping to take place in July, and that'll just be virtual. The consultants would like to speak one-on-one with members, but if we wanted to change that and just have, if you wanted to as a group, speak with the consultants, that is an option. They just felt that there's more flexibility with one-on-ones, and also that, maybe individuals would be more likely to share information, that sort of thing. But that will happen with both the library board and members of council for both communities.
I'd like to say, I think it should be a board position, not an individual opinion,
Yeah.
and it should be a meeting with the
Board.
board.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, given that our policy is we speak as one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
And knowing what they're asking in advance would be helpful, because there may be some things that we haven't discussed yet, and we don't have a board position on. So we definitely would want to meet with them maybe after our next meeting, so we have a chance to.
It's interesting that that's the direction that I'm being given, because I made that suggestion, but I can come back and say the board would like,
Yeah, I don't think.
We're not
I don't
accepting
think they're doing
individual
divide and conquer, but that's what you sort of almost think if they meant the person.
Well, and we can all meet with them individually at focus groups for other topics, or, and what are the focus groups? Are they by a demographic split, or are they by tennis, pickleball, library?
I think,
Thoughts?
well, yeah, the fine details haven't really been spelled out in the engagement plan, but I think that they will be targeting like groups. Like, you know, the soccer, that sort of thing.
And will you be there? Because I think. Or maybe you would know it well enough, but this whole legislation thing about libraries and municipalities outside the border that Sabrina always talked about.
Union Library.
That, I mean, I don't even think that hasn't even come up at all in any of our discussions, because the project itself is to just come back with ideas, like there's not going to be, it's not one recommendation.
I was
Moving
shocked at the
forward.
fact that they've got right in there that they're exploring integrating library services into a multi-use model, and that they included, that Ryan included a comment that has proven effective elsewhere. It's almost like,
But that's true.
Yeah. That didn't come from Ryan either,
okay,
and I was part of that entire discussion
okay,
as
so
well.
you're,
Yes,
okay,
yeah, so anything that has been released so far, except for Ryan's staff report that's going to council just with the presentation on Monday, like I wasn't involved in writing that, but I was involved in like all of the language for developing the media release, the content on on the town's website.
so are you saying that that second sentence of the second paragraph there, and we'll also explore integrating library services, that wasn't there before, you asked that that be included?
No, what happened was it was actually overcomplicated in the first draft, and we simplified it
Okay.
to that, but it was mostly just to say that that's an option that they're going to explore, because it has proven successful in other communities, but it might come back where the results from the study are that that's not a feasible option for this
Okay.
community.
Because I don't think we've ever. The reason, and maybe I'm just overreacting, but, I don't think we ever. Like, we wanted to participate in this study, we haven't gotten to a point where we would suggest merging with Collingwood Library.
No, and that's not
what that means,
that's,
so.
no,
So I
multi-use
think I
facility
read
would
this,
be-
though, I read this as, it could be one facility with, that the Collingwood Library and the Blue Mountains Library would be merged. Like, you could read that to say they're looking at,
So grammatically,
yeah,
maybe go grammatically, the first part of that paragraph is really important. It's assessing the current and future recreational facility needs of residents from both communities. So the setup is, we're talking about both communities. Now, you're right, it doesn't say separately. There literally should be said separately. But it is, I mean.
I don't wanna make more of it than it's.
It could be read either way. It's a really good flag. Because what I think you're pointing out is we do need to be very careful about language and being consistent in our communication, that we haven't agreed to any sort of integration, because there are municipal laws that, that come into play that are certainly, we are in a position to actually say.
To me, it looked like somebody somewhere's already decided what's going to happen. So, and I was like, since we're part of the people that will be deciding this, I was like, oh,
that has
Okay.
never been part
Okay.
of the
Okay.
discussion.
so it's just the way it's worded.
Yeah. I haven't had, and at our meetings, we also have talked about the feedback we've received from the community since the media release came out. And the only comments that we've had so far, most have been pretty positive, just that people are excited that like some of these
Multi-use,
community
yeah.
groups of the idea, the multi-use. But it was whether or not there would be a steering committee So there's some particular recreation groups that want to be more involved, but that's not part of this project. That could come into play down the road, but this is just essentially trying to figure out options to solve recreation and library needs in both communities separately. I would be shocked if, it's hard to say, like, we're trying to just go into it as if we have no idea the community's going to tell us what we need.
Which is, could be risky.
Yeah.
For a point of, well, there's other pieces of it, like obviously, which is in, what the package they released is, you know, like, obviously they're going to be studying the demographics of the community, all of the existing plans, like I've provided, all of the plans and assessments that have been done for the library. I had one-on-one consultation with the consultants to talk specifically about our library and our community's needs, and then the Collingwood Public Library had that opportunity too. And the needs are very different in each community, specifically for library. I can't speak to recreation in general. But
So is one of the focus groups be beyond libraries? Is that, yeah, I guess you're not that far.
Yeah, we're not
down the
that
road.
far yet.
You already answered that question, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so,
Yeah, sorry, your
Oh,
question was.
no, I mean, obviously we wanna be involved, sometimes these things take on a life of their own, right? Before you know it, you're like,
Well, that's why we have her on the committee. That's why we're so
Yeah.
important. to
Yeah.
have her on the committee.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a great comment. Always saying respectively, each community, rather
Yeah.
than both, because those
yeah.
kind of consistency is a really good comment.
the one thing I've been struggling with is how we're defining what recreation is. So, because when I had a one-on-one with the consultants, and I'm open to sharing, one of the things I mentioned is that in the town of the Blue Mountains, the concept of recreation is very much provided by the library. Like, we don't have a separate recreation department. We do the community programming apart from maybe like public skating,
Mhm.
where, you know, Collingwood has like a recreation department that programs and plans activities beyond the library. So like, that's just one example of how different the communities are, and that's a pretty big difference. So, but it's just like defining, well, what is recreation? Because someone that at the municipal level that works in recreation wouldn't necessarily consider library services recreation.
I think the vault will be helpful here, right? Cause we've got a recreation in there, don't we?
Yes.
Yes. So, and that's well defined.
Yeah,
So your comment about, Collingwood having their own recreation program, so what recreation stuff, like what is considered recreation that the library does?
that we do, sorry. Most of our programs, even, well, I'll just use like seniors exercise, you know, that takes place at the library in the town of the Blue Mountains, where like there may be municipal programs or camps, you know, camps for kids, or like things like that, that the municipality in other areas are overseeing, where it's the library that does that
Okay,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean.
yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, because if you look at the town recreation, parks and recreation is really, the golf course, like Tomahawk, the marina and park rental.
And courts,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Pickleball,
courts
skating.
and tennis courts and.
So the
Skating, yeah.
community center is a town, right? So, yeah, but still, but yeah, so they're, as
And again,
opposed to all of like.
Yeah, I guess I
They
could
don't have
have
portals that
YMCA
says
here.
sign up for
Yes.
this,
YMCA
sign up
summer
for
camp.
this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
okay,
they're
I
all-
didn't even think about
Yeah, and again, that's one of the
reasons.
reasons it was so important to have Jennifer on the committee, was I think the town perspective is, you know, courts, the, community center, golf course, you know, it's the active side, physically active side. And they have a blind spot for the fact that the library is a huge portion of this service in the community, this whole recreation service.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Cause I wouldn't have connected the two, which means there's messaging we gotta get in.
Yeah. Even from libraries though, the way that we serve our community versus the way that the Collingwood Public Library does, it's very different. Like, and that actually came out in their Volt as well, you know, where they scored higher on certain things than we do. And it made a lot of sense to me. But I can get more into that in the Volt if.
Okay.
We're almost at the vault
curious.
anyway.
Yeah,
Anything else?
Can I ask a question
yeah.
on this? So just reading this, the kickoff document, I don't see specific outcomes or deliverables. So it's not clear to me from a decision-making perspective, and maybe you have a better understanding of that, but do you, like, is there a document that you've seen that says the report would contain the following? And or what decisions? So, because it's, you know, they're gonna say to your, if you're saying it's just, yes, we need more recreation, or here's the 5 things that people want. I'm just not clear, how is that gonna be stated, right? Like, is it just, okay, here's what people said they want, here's a report, here's a summary of all the focus groups and what facilities exist. And then the next step is prioritization, and that's not part of Collier's output? Or I'm not clear.
No, my understanding is that they will present the information they found to each council, and then it'll be up to the councils to make a decision on how they want to move forward.
So. Are you done?
I'll ask another question.
Are there any risks to this? I'm thinking about, or maybe I should come at it from the more positive way. What I wouldn't like to have happen is, that this becomes this 20-year project where, all of our needs get put on hold, waiting pending outcome of this. Right? And I know it's too early and we're just getting this study done this year and it'll give us much more information, but, I hope it isn't going to be like seen as this nirvana down the road, but it's gonna take 20 years and we just have to wait for 20 years till we get an expanded facility.
I think that's,
I hope you're.
Yeah.
that ties to my question about timing. So I notice in the report, it says the feasibility assessment will confirm community needs for both the current timeframe as well as a defined future scope. So clarity on what is a current timeframe, are we talking within the next 5 years, and what is a future scope? So I think if you don't know, I think it would be really great for you to get clarity on what timeframes they're talking about, exactly to
Yeah.
that, because if we're, you know, if we're looking at the intensity plans, we're gonna have 10,000 more people, 5,000 more people in the downtown core in the next 3 years. We gotta move on some other decisions now. But, you know, if everything is pushed out for 10 years to the point, so I just think it would be really good to have clarity on the timeframes that they're working with. And that will help inform our activities.
Where did you do that?
This was,
Was this the email?
the email that I sent you was,
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, if you want, you can, on the town website, you can sign up for the project and then, to be alerted for information, so it comes out, this came out third,
Okay, yeah.
the day that I got it, I sent it to,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
So on the website, you can.
You find the, multi-use project,
Okay.
and then you can sign up.
Probably there's other projects there too, we can
Lots
sign
of
up for, okay.
Yeah, my email's full of
Yeah.
stuff.
So,
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
so, yeah, okay.
Sorry, and then the other thing you just mentioned, that the focus groups were August, September. So
Yes.
in what they distributed though, they have focus groups in July. So the project work plan has community survey, conservative focus groups, June, July, community survey, June, July, so I don't know if this is something that's gonna be changed or.
Well, let me just look at.
I probably pushed it off a month because they're behind.
Focus groups starts in September.
I will double check, but I'm more inclined to say that that is actually correct.
Okay, so, which is a problem, because the community survey should have started now.
Mhm.
And it also, you know, and my, you know, do I want this report to run forever? No, but am I concerned that a lot of people are not here in the summer and getting, you know, I remember the Ratepayers Association had a big issue with trying to gather information in the summer about important things. But anyway,
Yeah, summer's not a great time to do surveys.
I do know that well, I guess my question would be, whether or not the board would like me to schedule the consultants to do a similar presentation to the board. Do we want to have Sean address some of the questions on Monday at the council meeting, or I will also be at the council meeting?
So you're talking about, do we want, because they're doing a presentation on Monday at council, and you're asking, do we want to have a similar presentation to us at the board?
Yes, and the only reason I didn't propose that already is because I did think that it needed to go to council before it came to the board.
I think it makes sense for them to present to us. I mean, I can't be there on Monday, I'm not in the province, I'm not in Canada.
So are we thinking they would present on the same day, or would they come and do a separate presentation and do a separate board meeting?
Separate.
Yeah,
and the purpose of presenting to us, this exact thing of presenting to council is for feedback, questions.
is it information or is it consultative?
I would assume you could ask questions as well.
I'm thinking
I
about
don't wanna
presenting them.
overreact. Like,
Yeah.
It is a very high level presentation that's going to
Yeah.
council on Monday. There will be
We saw it,
multiple
right?
presentations.
Yeah, I think that I think more importantly is getting the things, the information they want to ask us
Mhm.
before,
Mhm.
and us having time
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
regroup and.
Yeah.
And I will bring that up in the next meeting that we have with the project team.
Yeah,
And I guess the council presentation is publicly accessible.
I was about to
afterwards.
say that, so whoever doesn't actually make it to the meeting on Monday can always watch it later.
Yeah.
and so the question back to you is whether you ask questions that we want, or Sean does, or one of us, I can go, asks as a member of the public standing up. Because I do think, I do think we want clarity on the timeline of this information gathering, for sure.
So you would stand up and say as an individual, I'm
I
asking
don't
these
know if
questions.
I
or as a
can publicly
representative of
comment on the
everyone?
agenda.
Either one.
I'm not a resident. And I'm not a staff member. I can only speak, I think, if council asks me to.
I think you're right, and depending on how they set up the agenda, there's always a public comment period.
Yeah.
So that would be, that's, actually, I find it confusing, sometimes it seems to be before a presentation, sometimes it seems to be after. So you have to
This
pay
is all
attention.
made public, so.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
This is all been made public, so it's fair, and that's why I was saying, like, I'm happy to stand up and just say, I've received the documentation, I've looked through it.
These are
And
my questions.
these are my questions.
That would be fine, I'm just saying, at the actual meeting, you only get standing the opportunity to do that at certain points.
Yeah,
So you have to pay attention to where it says public comment period, and then as a person sitting in the audience, you can get up but you have to make sure you're on a section of agenda that's got that piece in order to comment.
And do you have to
pay attention.
identify you're gonna have comments beforehand, or? can
No,
you-
if you're actually physically in the meeting, you can
Okay.
just
Yeah,
stand up and
You
go.
get 3
And
minutes.
they
I
invite
think.
you to do it, you have 3 minutes.
Or is it better that Sean just asked the question about confirming time?
It only wouldn't,
My recommendation would be to filter questions through Sean.
That's it.
but then you know it's coming from the library board, I mean, otherwise, you're
Yeah,
an
yeah.
independent person.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I guess you would send your comments to Sean to present.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna ask him, just in the meeting, we understood, just clarification on the timing, because we understood focus groups were August, September, but this indicates different.
I also will triple check if that was my mistake. We did revise the engagement plan. I'm almost positive, Bill, this is volume 2. I could have made a mistake.
Okay, I'll just.
yeah.
Confirm. That this is the latest.
Okay, so we'll also make sure, if we don't actually attend Monday, we make a point individually of watching that section, so we receiving Collier's, right?
Yeah.
Presentation on it, and then, well, when they come to talk to us to actually consult with us, we'd like to know what the questions are in advance,
Yes,
so we have a chance as a board to develop our
they've,
responses.
Yeah.
they've been very flexible in terms of, I don't know if now is the time, but I could propose a date for a focus group at the next meeting or email them and say, we would like our board focus group to happen at the July meeting, at the,
I think we've got a pretty full agenda for July, I was just writing it all down.
at a special meeting or,
We could do it, well, August meeting, that'd be too late, we're not doing an August meeting now.
We don't have one scheduled, but we can always put one in.
But if it's a board meeting, it's recorded. Do we want the meeting recorded?
Do you have a committee of a whole, is that recorded?
it doesn't have to be, but it's still considered a public meeting, so a member of the public could show up. Yes, and I mean, I don't think anything that we would be discussing qualifies for closed session. But does it have to be recorded or live streamed? That's not a legislative requirement.
So I guess I'm not sure what the answer, I mean, do we want to try and get them to come to our July meeting? But we have to have information in advance, no, because we can't, we won't have had, we won't have had a chance to discuss it ourselves in order, so we'd have to be doing it in a subsequent meeting.
Okay,
So we would need it to August if we can find the time for all of us.
And maybe we can take
or a
it
special meeting
for a special meeting.
separately in
and-
July.
Yeah. After our board meeting, yeah, later in July.
Maybe if we had the questions, we could give some thought to it at the board meeting in July.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I definitely want the questions for the
Yeah,
board meeting in
yeah,
July, so we have a chance to think about our responses.
You had another question though that I thought was good for the Monday presentation about,
This is just what is meant by the current
now.
time frame and future time frame in Ryan's report.
yeah,
So I'll include that in the note to Sean. Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah, the triggers and us.
That like, so I've gone through and see, there's something, so I'll have to, I guess I didn't just.
okay.
Yes.
So did we just, are we done now with that topic? The,
Oh, we're going to go on forever.
okay, I will declare it done. for now. So then our next, topic is Volt.
Yes,
Yeah, I was really pleased that it was so readable and.
did you like the way it was presented? I mean, not to say that this is how it would be presented to council,
It was just to us.
yes.
I did like it.
I will share though, that the template that we used was last updated by OLS in May.
What
So
template?
it's the most, to get the data that
Yeah.
that I put into this report. So it's the most up-to-date template that was used to calculate the numbers. Do you want me to do a high level?
Sure, but before you, I won't be able to think of anything else. And I know we're not supposed to compare, but you've already suggested that you have Collingwood's. So not compare.
Well, my comment was, I love these numbers, but I need some context.
No, we're not allowed. They don't want us to compare, but
Especially.
unofficially, can we compare?
Well, the
So you
way that
can't,
I
like-
compared though, it was for two reasons. the first is, do our numbers seem out of,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
but the second reason was also, because we are doing this study and it is interesting to see how we serve our communities differently. So if our, calculation or return on investment for culture, or wait, let me say,
space.
yeah. If Collingwoods is higher, does that mean their space is better? Not necessarily. Like each calculation just says a lot about the community itself and not necessarily if we're over or
Is that
underperforming.
why they didn't want us to do comparisons?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it isn't that helpful, because you know our human nature is.
Yeah, like
This is good,
to me, I don't know if these numbers are good or bad.
yeah.
well, the analysis that and if you have any other ideas, the analysis I did was, okay, how does the return on investment for every single, what's the term, sorry, is it domain?
Domain, yeah.
Yeah.
For every domain, from a business perspective, is the social return on investment good or bad? And it's excellent, every single domain. So, just let me.
Because it's not zero.
Like versus a 10% return.
Yeah,
Okay, so the benchmark is a business return of 10%, I think is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
that gives you some context.
yes, so in general, what the data is showing us is that our social return on investment is 254%. So for every 1 hour that we're open to the public, we generate $388.39 of economic benefit. And for every $1 invested into the library, we generate a $2.54 return, or a return of 254.
I mean, that sounds excellent,
Mhm.
but I'd love to know what I'm calling this.
Yeah,
So we'll come back to, so very quickly,
Washington.
and again, it's a grammatical thing, so when you say in addition to this data. But it's not in addition.
Oh, well,
right?
that
So
was,
extrapolate to me,
sorry.
It was more like, so are we another 388 on top of the 438?
It's more of an extrapolation from the data.
It was more, what this also means is, or another perspective is, it's not in addition.
I think I should have just put this before the graphic. I
No,
was,
just mean, so your statement in addition, or, so it's a question I have.
oh,
So is $388 in addition to the 438.43?
It's more like this data indicates, colon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Whatever,
was
yeah.
just in addition to the data that was presented before this, that's where I was going over.
That might-
If that.
Yeah,
makes
this
sense.
is a report you prepared for us. I'm just saying, if you use this sentence again, you just want to say, this data indicates.
Okay,
So if I was getting presented this, like, so if I was sitting on council and the library came forward and said, look at these wonderful numbers, my first comment would be, well, how does that compare?
Yeah.
Like, if like I got 85%, but the mean was 90, so,
There's a lot of education that has to happen in this.
yeah.
we're gonna have to give them some comparators.
I think they have to.
They'll be Googling.
I mean, it sounds wonderful, but I don't know what this.
So we have to use comparators that have used the same methodology.
Yes, but isn't that the whole purpose of this methodology?
It is.
It's-
So how many people have done it yet?
I've seen 4 so far.
This council has particular comparators, right?
Yeah.
Collingwood, of course, Wasaga Beach, Meaford. There may be others, maybe even the same comparators that we're using for the salary survey.
Mhm.
And who among those, because that's where council's gonna go, I agree. Who among those have actually done this? And, that's of interest. And I think it's important it's a library that's done this methodology, which I know is very new, so we very few comparators at this point. Other libraries, and we've seen Innisfil's, we've seen Toronto's, You can find these online.
And like way up north, that's when they
Yeah,
did.
well, you can find them.
Temiskaming Shores, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they use, Temiskaming Shores used an earlier version of this, which
Right.
had errors in it, so we don't wanna,
yeah,
we wanna make sure they use the latest version. Cause there's so many different methodologies for this kind of thing, you know, and I can say right off the bat, Toronto came out like at 454. Well, why are we like half of that? Well, they used a whole different methodology that measured things in a different way,
Mhm, mhm.
so,
What
you know,
do you mean they're 454?
that when we came out with 254.
So our 254 number, they came up with 454.
Wait, how did we get the 254? I don't even see, I know you were just talking about that, but I'm completely mixed up.
On the bottom here.
I know, but well, on the
So
previous
every-
page, it's 438.
That's per resident, so you have a per resident number, and then what we have is an economic benefit number, that's the 388, and then you have for every dollar invested.
Oh, okay, so it's different, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
denominators are different, yeah.
But yeah, so I think maybe we should be talking about not comparators, but how other libraries, you know, what the results show for their communities. And I think, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there, and I think we need to think about how we talk about this, because it is not comparison. What this really shows is what is lacking in a community, is another way of looking at this, is that communities that don't have 5 pools and 6 community centers or 3 community centers with lots of sports, et cetera, their library is key. It's really important. And again, and I think Jen, you made a really good point, which is different communities based on other things they have, their library is gonna, you know, the library will play a different role. And so the communication I'm thinking about this is how the role that our library plays and what's missing is really important of this information. I think sharing Collingwood is a good idea for all of us to know, especially as it relates to this multi-use study. Because it's a really great piece of information, but not about comparison. It's about how it identifies what communities are providing and what the role the library plays.
What was that?
I
I don't know off the top of my head.
yeah, but you know, coming back to this, I think it's fabulous. I think we have a great story, and I think, you know, I like how we called out where, you know, where it makes sense that we have, because where we support it, it makes sense that we don't have, you know, that we're lower
In space,
on the space,
Yeah.
because we don't have space.
yeah.
And, you know, we're low, and if we dig into entertainment and leisure by age group, it's because we don't have youth programs, right? So, and I think that's the importance of this tool, is it shows you areas of need and value, right? By activity. So I'm just kind of going on about more about how to frame this up and for us to be thinking about it and communicate about it.
You just reminded me, I was talking about Toronto, and one of the, not necessarily because of a study they did, but, one of the comparators they put out there was that they had more visitors per, I forget whether it was per year or whatever, than all of the other cultural facilities, sports facilities, and, you know, the ACC, the Scotia, you know, the arenas, all.
So they did a comparison.
Yeah, but they're calling it, because everyone thinks, you know, everybody goes to these huge baseball games and all these different things, but Toronto Library was getting way more usage than all of those other things put together. And that was a sort of a factoid, everyone kind of went, bing,
Wow,
Yeah.
and its comparison would be.
Within,
Yeah.
yes,
that's a really great.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that about baseball.
so all the, attendance at all of the big sports facilities in Toronto, the public library gets way more attendance than all of that put together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. It's like, whoa, you think, you know, oh, you get $50,000 in that arena. They must have, how many times are they using it every year? Well, then, but library beats them by a mile. So it's the way of telling the story is how do you do that?
Reference points, yeah.
Yeah.
So Jen, you do some analysis, but sort of in like 2 or 3 words in each, what are your like 4 or 5 key takeaways from this?
well, the space spoke out to me a lot.
Yeah.
Which is, like, this is, my biggest takeaway is that none of this is surprising. But it does indicate, you know, where we scored the lowest is the space, again, not surprising. Entertainment and leisure, very high, not surprising.
Civic engagement is lower than space.
Yes, and again, so the way that civic engagement was measured was a combination of volunteerism. And partnerships and community development programming. So, we know as the outcome of COVID, that volunteerism is down, like that's common in most communities. We didn't have, most of our, in terms of staffing last year, because this is based off of last year's data. We didn't have a manager of community engagement. We didn't have a manager of public service. So yes, we were still partnering, but we were down staff, so we weren't necessarily doing as much as we typically would. Again, though, that is also linked to COVID. So I think what I noted in this report too is, should we do this exercise next year based off of this year's data, it is going to change significantly.
Yeah.
There's even a specific section where I was playing around putting in, you know, well, we have a seed library now, we have all of these new initiatives, and it significantly impacts the numbers, so it's going to change.
Economic development, so that's one of our highest.
Yes.
And I just wonder if there's a potential risk. Seeing, because the first words that come out of economic benefits are the annual staffing. Benefits and training costs.
Self-generated revenue.
I know, but
Yeah.
like. Is somebody going to say, like a council member, could they potentially say, oh, that's because you have too many staff? Just saying, when I look at the description, staffing benefits and training costs.
Which is interesting, it's like it's 75.64%, which for a service organization, that's low.
What's 75%?
Overall proportion of expenses related to staffing, benefits and training comes out of the summary page. And that's, I don't really comment on it in this at all,
I don't know if I do either.
but it is low. But the way you're commenting there, it makes it look like it's high.
Yeah, well, it could be interpreted that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, so maybe,
Yeah, that might be a good point to make.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, you know, I think it's more the way it's listed. If you said, i.e. programs related to business and economic development, self-generated revenue, and then put annual staffing and benefits behind,
Yeah,
I think it might, it almost, the way they put it in here, it sounds like it's in a hierarchical order.
yeah, we're saying, oh, if you hire a lot of people, yes, you're putting money into the community, but then somebody could say, well, but how efficient are you? And we know we're very efficient, but.
Cause I look at the business and economic development and self-generated revenue, those are two big things, or good things.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think it's just the way it's worded.
maybe, but anyway, it's good that we've all these different ways of looking at things.
are these bullets up here, are these quotes directly from the model?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
that's okay, so that's the way they model organized it. What's our next step with this? I mean, you wrote this report to us. Do we need to spend more time going through this and thinking, asking these questions? I mean, we haven't a lot of time to look at this, it's only just come out in the last week or so.
Yeah.
Do we want to put it back on the July agenda?
What I would like to see come out of this is what are our key messages?
Yeah, and when, as we plan for a meeting to present it, yeah,
What are our key messages? One being, we were very low in space because space is a challenge for us. You know, but just that sort of. Like, what as a board do we want 3 or 4 key messages coming out of this to me.
And where would, entertainment and leisure, we talked about, I remember when we first talked about this, we weren't that keen on the way that heading is written, because it kind of implies, I mean, I could argue that reading isn't for pleasure, just solely, it's for so many other things, right? Like, now, do you remember we had that discussion? But anyway, that's how Volt's been designed.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, what's your question?
Just the entertainment and leisure.
how are we gonna, that would be, like, we have to give some thought as to how we present that, because it's a big one.
Yeah.
It's the biggest, right? 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Cause it looks like it could be more,
So like, would we be able to say our key message part of our, the mission or strategic plans or whatever, this aligns with it or it doesn't align with it or?
That gave me an idea. It would be interesting to see. I'm just trying to think this through. Whether or not GLAMS, like our structure as a library, gallery, archive, and museum, if naturally we score higher in certain areas because we have. Like I'm thinking, how do we also explain just how important that structure is to the. Whether it's important or not, I kind of
Depends on
look
what,
into that,
did they
so.
put any measures in here that deal with the gallery, for example, because it's very rare.
Yes,
And
yes,
does that
but it's
show
sort
up
of
there?
amalgamated with a few other things.
Is it in culture?
For some reason, I feel like it's under entertainment. You would think it was under culture. I will double check right now.
yeah, cause I remember we had this discussion, or maybe it was with Sabrina, just about the fact that it kind of implies it's a nice to have, like leisure,
You're right.
Oh.
leisure.
Or maybe.
Yeah.
As opposed to an essential element of,
Yeah.
And these domains are all ranked the same.
of work-life balance and all that.
There's no.
Sorry,
No waiting.
Yeah, there's no weighting on the 7 domains, they're all ranked the same.
Well, they're all different.
Well, I guess
It's,
Oh, I see what you mean.
no, because then Algoma College, whatever, would put a value on what's more important.
Mhm.
So I think we are the ones who have to say what's more important.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, like culture days, poetry, story.
Culture talks about collections and materials, so that's really where the museum, archives and museum value comes in. Culture numbers really highlight the value of having the archives and museum, the gallery itself. I mean,
and it does fall under culture, so. Yes,
Gallery does fall into culture?
yeah.
So why wouldn't it be higher then? Maybe because it was closed for a long time?
Not last year, I don't think.
This is for all of 2023,
23.
but wasn't the reopening? It was closed.
Oh, the museum,
Yeah.
sorry, I thought you were talking about the gallery. Yes, you're right.
So culture might be higher.
Yes, that is a
Yes.
good point, yeah,
Yeah.
because I think the museum reopened in June,
Right,
wasn't it?
Oh, right, well, because of the construction, not
Yes.
because of COVID, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah, I think when we presented this first, just that this was coming, I think what we tried to establish is that this is the beginning of a way of understanding what the value the library brings in the various areas. And that it is, really for us to look at and say, what are our priorities? Where are gaps? Is that a gap that can be answered somewhere else in the community? Is it something that we should take on those kinds of decisions? So it's not necessarily, and again, it's back to the comparing to other places. Absolutely, it's the value, first and foremost, it's, hey, taxpayer, all of us taxpayers, you're getting bang for your buck. And then if we do feel, and the residents and taxpayers feel like we need more youth programming and the library should support it, okay, well, how do we do that, right? And those are the questions as opposed to comparisons.
I'm back to leisure. On value of reading for pleasure. If I take out a book on, I don't know, home canning. Is that reading for pleasure? Or am I learning to be self-sufficient?
Yeah, no, the reading for pleasure is specifically reporting on fiction collections.
Okay, so it's just fiction.
Yeah, and then nonfiction, I think, is captured in education.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
So this will help us in our space argument. What would be one of the key messages coming out of here?
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Just a couple of questions that puzzle me. The way you've got a cultural infrastructure on the left, social infrastructure on the right, is that meant to correspond with things that fall below it? In other words, are we suggesting that this is social and this is cultural? No, it doesn't make any sense then. What's the
That's a
point of that? No, it's too bold.
I don't actually know. This infographic was actually designed by OLS. So that basically they shared this with
Yeah.
empty values and we just plug it in.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
so I was,
those are the two buckets that they kind of focus on in terms of the value being provided, but you're right. If you were to present it this way, it does make sense.
it adds no value, and it adds confusion.
Yeah.
I would
Just the
actually-
top part.
I would just delete those, yeah, unless there's some information around that I'm missing, in which case the report's missing too.
Yeah,
Or you reorganize the actual individual items, so you've got
They-
culture and.
Yeah.
we can't be, we probably shouldn't fiddle with their. With their graphic, we should probably just explain it to
I'm going to
ourselves.
explain it. Okay, I'm trying to figure out the best way to deal with this agenda item. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask about what they're seeing? It's confusing, doesn't make sense.
Well, I was confused over entertainment and leisure, but I don't know if there's a way we can take out the word, not on the graphic or in the headings, but, well, no, I don't know.
I'm just thinking in terms of the actual, not the presentation so much as the information. I was, like, I know this comes out of the annual survey, a lot of the data comes out of the annual survey, it says that on the summary page from the data. And yet, I don't quite understand the numbers. And if you try to look at our budget, you're not gonna find these numbers in our budget in that way. You know, so, that I find tricky to understand. And we may get questions like that, well, if our budget is, if the numbers are this, why does it not say that here? And one example I think would be capital. We buy most of our collections through a capital budget, right? And is that included in our annual operating fund?
It's, let me just look how they have it here. I'm pretty sure I report it separately in the annual report. But here, how do they have it?
I know the denominator for the return on investment is operating funds. And if that's missing the $50,000 that we buy through collections that sits in a capital fund, then that would be under measuring it 25%.
Are you ready for
Wow, perfect.
Okay, there's average.
Yeah, well, I was watching it on the radar.
I just can't remember how I reported the capital for collections.
That's the one that really stands out for me, because that whole capital discussion on amortizing collections and things that happened a few years ago, it's just, it all got pulled out of operating for many libraries. And, so I just not, and, but yet it's a big, if you're gonna be measuring collections, and we're
Yeah.
not putting in our, how we buy them, that doesn't make any sense.
And you're right, we don't. It's just the average we spend on specific items.
Right, so when that summary table comes up and it wants us to divide our total expenses of 1.2 million by our operating funds of 1.6, that excludes about $50,000, right?
Okay, I see it.
I use the wrong percentage, it's not 25%, but it's a big enough number.
I see what you're saying now.
So. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this math. If you will. Sorry, so what, can you just help us understand, so there's the collection, the value of the collection, and though we're updating it every year.
Yeah, so we spend, what is it, our budget for collections is $50,000 or
We use
something?
50,000, it's a number, that's fine.
It's a number,
So
yeah.
that every year we're replacing the, or we're.
Our
spending-
budget is around $50,000 for
From an
collections.
accounting perspective, it's
It's,
part of our like amortized capital.
well, it's considered a capital fund, so I don't know. Leave the word amortization out of it, so it actually comes out of our capital funds, and yet, we're told by this model that you're dividing it by operating funds, which would be excluding the capital. Even though that, the way we buy is from a capital fund. And it had to do with insurance or something, I forget. I mean, so it just puzzles me that maybe it's not a big enough number, but sort of, that actually, would bring our operating funds up to like 1.7 something.
And so,
Is it enough
and
for
again, so
that?
just me, so, but what the model does is it asks for the cost of replacement. So our fiction titles and our non-fiction.
The average cost
The
of
average
purchasing,
cost of purchasing.
yeah,
Times the, so I'm just wondering if it is captured, just in a different way. That's what I'm wondering, so I hear what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense to me, but I wonder if we then be, like, basically negating, because it's captured in the, so if we have
You're right, it's
whatever,
captured.
10,000 books taken out at an average replacement of X. But I see what you're saying, it's even, we have books that have not been taken out, or, yeah,
no, where did that go? Sorry,
I guess I don't know if we double.
Can't remember how
counted,
things-
or would we
I just, but in detail, I spent my time on the summary page, and that's what jumped out at me is where they were pulling their numbers from, didn't seem to capture all of our expenses. Or all of our revenue, I guess, either.
Oh.
I went back to the annual survey data in the ministry, and it's very,
and it doesn't capture all of our.
well, it didn't even show expenses. It was kind of weird, anyway.
Yeah, that is kind of worrisome.
But, I mean, you say if it's, when you get into the other summary, away from the overall summary page into the individual ones, maybe it picks it up there in some fashion. I just didn't have time to dig into that.
I think that's a really important question that we should probably follow up with the.
All people, yeah.
Yeah,
so I'm asking. Basically how, I'm not sure if I understand
Okay.
how capital is,
Look at Sheila.
What I wrote down is there's other revenue sources. We had a carry forward in 2023 of $89,000.
Certain steps.
Um,
Did you guess?
we had the blog of 21,000, we had project grants of 112, we had self-generated donations. We also had capital, $637,000. how did, if we spend all of our capital, where does that fit into the calculation?
Okay,
So the question really is, how does our budget get captured in this
Really, yeah,
format? That's really what the question is.
yeah.
And does it include the whole budget? Does the whole budget get captured?
okay,
Well, and I wrote down for but that year, our total operating revenue was 1.8 million. And yet our operating funds are listed at 1.6. In that, so 1.66, that's our operating funds, and that comes out of the annual survey. But where does all of our capital expenditures, some of which are actually more like operating expenditures, is this the way that budgeting works in this town?
yeah. I'd have to look more
Yeah,
closely at the
yeah.
Excel and I can always, I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
You
Okay.
just wanna
I'll
make
look
sure that the
into it.
whole budget is captured in the
Yeah.
formula.
No, that's a good,
Mhm.
yeah,
yeah, I'll go through the template and then I can also talk to OLS.
Cause you're right, if there's a block of money that's not considered, then.
some of the numbers will be off, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
And maybe it's a matter of understanding it, so that we see,
And was there any opportunity to put the depot in? Like to prorate the numbers? Cause if you would have just put in the hours it was open during the year. For the 6 months that it was open, then that's different. Was there an opportunity to, like, did they ask hours open in the year? Of the,
if it did in the Volt, I can't remember I mean, I can check now, but in the annual survey, like you base it off of your like standard hours of operation, so.
oh, okay, so
Yeah.
then it would be based on a full year.
Yes,
but in our full year, we're open half a year.
I know, but we don't know whether she put in standard hours of operation are 30 hours a week. Which is then multiplied by 52, or whether she put in,
Can you answer that?
yeah. I base it off of our standard operating
yeah, so you would have
hours.
said 30 hours a week.
So even though it was last year, we only have,
Yes,
rated that for half a year, would still be multiplied by 12 months, not 6 months. Okay.
yes,
Which is.
but
fine.
there's a note, there's
We have
a
to be
note that I
updated.
also put in because. Like, this is like a bit of a flaw in the annual survey, especially if you have summer and winter hours. And when you're doing your typical survey week, like we have to do it in the fall, although I guess we could do it. I was just following the instructions any other time I've ever done it. You're supposed to do it in the fall, but for us, our busiest time, especially for the museum, is in the summer. So our typical week data will show much lower numbers than the reality of, yeah. It's, I don't know if I'm really explaining that very well, but
The problem she's talking about is the ministry says a typical week should be measured in November. And which is a funny time to measure it because lots of people lay low because it's raining. Yeah, or it's hunting season. So I think you can choose a typical week you think is actually typical for this
Well, it
location.
would be interesting, like, I don't know what's involved in putting the data in, but do one with the methodology they suggest, and then do one with the way you think it reflects how the operation is
Yeah.
here, and see how they come out different.
Everybody's is gonna be bigger next year, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Everybody will be going, oh, wait a minute,
Yeah,
and be trying to maximize, so we don't wanna get too.
but I go back again to sort of the higher level discussion, what did we want this to tell us?
Yes.
Yeah.
It tells us that we have a space issue, it tells us that we're a good return on investment, so like, this is what I meant by saying,
Yeah.
what are the high level things?
yeah,
And then how do we use this to help us to where we wanna go in the future, which is more space? Is that where we wanna go in the future? Again, that's your key messages when you're making the presentation, so,
Mhm.
You can play around with how you put the data in and see if it changes the numbers, but my gut would tell me that it's probably not going to say, change the ratios that you have there. Or the hierarchy with space being the lowest and. Do you think it would change the order of how those came out?
Mm. Probably not.
Yeah, maybe 2024 data might,
Yes.
yeah.
So where do we want to go from here? Do you want to spend some time identifying the key messages? Do we want to maybe ask Jen to go through and pull out what would be the initial sort of set of key messages that we look at again in our July meeting? Have we all have more time to read the data in detail?
That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think, I'm not.
I'm not feeling comfortable enough having,
Yes.
yeah, that time with it
No,
yet.
lots of great conversation. Yeah. So,
But you also might just want to try rerunning it with the week that's more indicative of what the library is in the depot. And note that you did that.
Yes. I just can't remember where that falls into. Anyway, I'll look at it closer.
So
Or in July.
let's suggest then that you'll say rerun some of the data if you think you're not getting a true typical week for us. That you'll, see what some of those financial numbers, as you say, they may not be significant in the overall thing, but some of them look like they are kind of significant, so. So that's a capital question. The key messages, you pulled out a lot of them already. But
I
you
can
could,
flesh it out a bit more.
yeah,
And the key messages, it should be no more than 2 or 3 lines.
Okay.
So you really want it to
pop.
Powerful.
yeah.
And that's the other thing I was wondering is what kind of, I think some of this is. The visual stuff I think is good. But is there a way of streamlining this for board or presentation to council that focuses bang on what they will be caring about?
What are their, it's not their values, it's, I've just looked at those and those are more, what, we talked about aligning to their
strategic priorities. It's in the future story.
future story.
Yeah, there's bold action, strategic. I think they changed the terminology, maybe strategic priorities. Yeah.
And so that's sustainable. It might be nice to see, I'm just opening up. To
So,
see,
yeah, I'm going to, I think key messages are important. I think we need to decide too, if this is a board presentation or is this a CEO presentation? And I think we do need to come back to what we presented earlier, because we did present and said this is coming, and we did try to set up the information about, so, you know, we're looking at culture, this is why it's important, and so we're just, building on it, I don't know what that.
Do you have with that presentation? I have, yeah, I'd love to see that.
what, the one we did?
Yeah.
And that was to the current council.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But they've got community and culture
Yeah.
and social well-being,
So lining it with that is important.
yeah,
Yeah.
economy. So this is very,
I'm just trying to think, so I'm just trying to think of like the next step on this, because there's the key messages, and do we want to publish key messages? So agree on them for the July meeting and then publish, and then we have to figure out when we're gonna present to council.
I think,
I'm just
yeah,
trying to think of what.
So I think more the key messages are, I didn't really see them being published.
Okay.
They're, I guess maybe key messages is the right word. What do we want strategic, what is the strategic key thing we want to come out of this? And how do we position it that we get that? And from my 2.5 meetings now, space is an issue, so how do we position this to sell the fact that we need space? And I think this does give us.
Yeah.
So, when I'm not talking about like key messages that we would publish, it's just like, when we go and talk to the stakeholder, what's the thing you wanna say? Space, 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 space? Or we're so good at entertainment that we don't have to worry about anything else? Like what exactly do we want to be harped on when we're going? I think it's space.
Yeah.
Space.
Well, I think that's comes after we say, we are a key supporter of your.
Strategic initiatives.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So you're talking about
Yeah.
the presentation to council.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so even before you get into that. What key message, and again, I just use that loosely, do we want to tell people coming out of the study?
And that's what, so.
And then you can line it up.
I think the key message is,
Again, I hate to do it, and I'm gonna be, but I'm like, something, because I feel like this. This is something that you kind of need to put your brains down and, you know, just kind of work on and then come back with a recommendation that the board. can
And then I
look
think
at.
that the main messages are just.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Because
happy
there,
to,
yeah,
I
there are
like that
two,
too.
right? There is the follow-up presentation to council, and because we do want the community to know the value of the library, so this is really, really important,
Yeah,
just as an overall
yes,
presentation, and
yeah.
we're $4 million worth of value, it's significant. And then addition, how do this information, as we get into the other priorities of space and expansion, et cetera, how this information is then used for the certain,
So you could go and you could talk about the value of the library, the strengths and the weaknesses, and future.
Yeah.
And there should be information, look at that's.
Yeah, and it's just that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. You align it to the presentation from the.
Yeah, that-
fall, I guess,
yeah.
but the, and the other thing is, this thing all started a few years ago with doing a return on investment, which is why that 254% is an important number. You may be investing X number of dollars in the library of the GLAM every year, but you're getting out, you know,
Yeah.
for 2 million, you're getting out 4 million, or whatever.
So the value of the
So-
library, how does it link to the municipal?
Yeah.
To its goals and strategic thing, and we're contributing so much towards this.
I'm a little skeptical though of using, comparing return on investment from an economic perspective to return on investment to the library. Like, I don't know if does Volt discuss that? Or was that you that said, 10 to 15%? Because that's very different. That's a corporation that has a profit. And they'll decide whether we're gonna develop this new widget and, oh, we made 10%. Very different than contributing. I'm not sure we should.
Yeah, certainly, yeah, I mean, if anything, you would say for other, social return on
Yeah.
investment, a good benchmark for social return on investment.
Yeah,
is X,
not
as opposed to
corporate,
comparing
'cause,
it to corporate. Cause then it does look like, well, that's really wonky, 10, like for 254 versus 10.
Yeah,
It's not.
we're not Apple, right?
I mean, it is a good reference point, but I think, because it's not just economic, you're right, it is social,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's different. And I don't wanna get caught up in, oh, if we give you $1, you're gonna make us $250. Like, no, that's not quite it.
Yeah, okay.
But yes, I think a separate, subcommittee,
Board presentation.
And who is on that committee?
That's the board.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Carol.
I just started thinking of the comment about comparing it to the city. Wouldn't it be kind of neat to say that the library provides this much value to the community versus the Beaver Valley Community Center or? I don't know, that's
Value,
like.
or just even just the numbers.
I don't, yeah, you can't really do value because they haven't done value
No,
assessment,
that's true.
but
that's true.
you can just do some flat, straight numbers.
Yeah, it's just factual numbers, yeah. But what else would you compare it to? Beaver Valley Community Center, what else? Pickleball courts? I don't know. Like, what?
Well, I, one and two would be to all the town run, right, so it would, well, of course, I don't know.
Yeah, but then you have to get the numbers from them. I don't know, do they publish their numbers, Jude?
Number of attendance?
I don't know, I don't think so.
Well, and I'm not the president of our tennis club, but I can tell you how many members we have. And I can tell you the kind of percentage usage of the courts, because we have a court booking system. But, that's they wouldn't have anything like that for all the other courts.
No.
I mean, maybe the pickleball club might have it for theirs,
Right.
but it'd be very
we
hard
don't
to even
know
have
the
members.
drop-in- We don't know the drop-in use
No.
either.
Don't know the drop-in
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
Yeah.
so.
They would be able to run a report on like the number of bookings.
Well, let's let them decide whether they wanna see that or not. I don't
Yeah.
think we need to ask.
No, I'm just thinking if you wanted to be, if you like, wanted your message to council to be. Here's the value of the library, here's how important it is, here's how much it's contributing to. The economic development, society, or good feeling, whatever. But if we want to maintain this and continue this and enhance this, we need this.
Mhm.
And then even as you can say, and we do more than the Beaver Valley community, we do more than, but I don't know, maybe that's not a good thing to do.
I think it's
No,
more
you know-
important that we're maybe highlighting, I mean, it really is all about not overlapping dollars, et cetera, and
Yeah.
we're not really competing, so it would be more about how, well, we can't have pickleball courts here.
Yeah. But you could make football courts.
Yeah, or,
Well,
you know, the community center, you know.
And in
it's already-
Toronto example, they didn't.
I don't think pickleball courts would be in the mandate of the library.
But I'm saying, in Toronto example, they didn't compare themselves to other municipal services.
Right.
They compared themselves to private.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't.
Yeah, maybe they did compare themselves to municipal, I didn't like the story, so they dropped
Yeah,
that.
Of course, I didn't need to make an enemy of the AGO, so they. Yeah.
You know, you can always get stats to come up.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna focus on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have enough.
No, I think
There's a lot of really great information.
Yeah, I think
here.
there is good.
So to benefit Jen, it's a great report. Thank you.
Yes, it is, it's really,
Yeah,
it's really
it's
good.
really good.
It's like a good study.
In case
You
that-
always ask us
in
hard
case that
questions.
That didn't come through. No, it is, I mean, it is a great, and it's
Yeah.
something we've been waiting for
I
a
think
long
it's gonna be a
time.
really good tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just that we have to make sure we really understand it.
Yeah.
And we know how to use it
Yes,
effectively.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have a subcommittee or a committee, I guess it's not a sub, working on
For presentation.
the presentation. You're gonna do a little bit more checking out some of the data.
yes,
Typical week and stuff, and check on the capital thing. And then we have a committee working on key messages and.
Let's call
follow-up
them main
presentation to council.
messages rather than key messages. because
Messages, we'll
it
call
gets them
prepare
confused.
messages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't realize key messages meant something else. So we just called it the main messages.
okay, okay, and we'll leave it up to you guys to decide, it'll be on the next agenda. And we'll deal with wherever you've gotten to at that point.
okay.
Okay.
It's just interesting in their bold actions. To move the future story forward, they don't really have anything related to. Like, it's very concrete, you know, like there's things like. Green development standards, I mean, all good stuff, you know, net zero carbon policy.
I think it's near the end around, it is around community, I think it was. about-
Oh. Actually, the circular economy,
Yeah,
yes, and we are referenced in that.
yeah,
The library of
Yeah.
things.
a library of things, and we have that in our.
Well, and it's funny you just mentioned that, cause I'm trying to find where it is, cause I just thought of something. And it's space related and related to the library of things. I just can't remember which domain.
Okay,
I just wanna make note of this while it's on my mind, so I don't,
Oh, I think it was in culture.
was it? I knew it was like somewhere that I wouldn't have. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, so
yeah,
our library of things, we know there's a demand for it. We know that it circulates well. I actually reported on that in my service report. But we have a lack of space.
Mhm.
So, you know, we want to expand our library of things, but we can't unless it's, you know, smaller items. You know, do we want to start buying more snowshoes or ski poles or things like that? Well, where are we gonna put it?
yeah.
And I think that actually, All the things you're trying to keep track of. Are you keeping track of requests? And unfulfilled requests for the library things?
I will ask Elisa. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't believe so.
Okay. I think we should move on.
Okay.
You could talk about this.
Yeah, we'll find out.
The next item is the security cameras.
Hmm.
Wow.
I had a question here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I had a question about the cost.
So
Okay,
before we get there, I had just a very editorial comment on background, and maybe it's just me. It was the sentence that says, we are prioritizing installation of security camera at both branches. Is Keighley considered a branch? Okay,
yeah,
yeah, okay, because that confused me.
Yeah, and the cost, cause at one point you say
The cost of-
there is no cost, and then later on there would be an additional cost, I just.
yeah, I can clarify, so. Then I can't remember which meeting, it wasn't the last meeting, it could have been the one before that, when the request for funding for the
Yeah, yeah.
accessibility. So part of that was, if we're working together to split that cost. That department is going to pay for the installation of security cameras at the depot. And so in this report, I have how much that will cost. But it's not coming out of our budget. The main thing is the quote for installing cameras at Ellie Shore, that would be the library's cost, which is the $20,000. And so the decision would have to be, and the reason it would fall on the library is the town doesn't have that money. This wasn't budgeted for in our budget this year for 2024. So it's, do we want to find that money this year or plan to incorporate it in the 2025 budget? And in that case, it could be a conversation between library and IT and saying, can you plan for this cost for 2025? And then council would have to have the ultimate say.
So plan for the cost of the cameras?
Yes,
And would that not normally be a town responsibility anyway, since it's their facility?
yes,
Okay, so
exterior,
not only have we not budgeted anything, but they haven't budgeted.
that's
anything.
correct,
So we're in the same boat, but it would generally be their responsibility anyway.
yes. But and then the other piece in the report is, should we say, we can't wait until 2025, we need these cameras now? That wouldn't be my recommendation. But should that be the decision, then the town has said that they will pay an additional $6,000 when they do the installation this year, hypothetically, to also install,
The
like a
door
fob system for the doors,
Oh, that's the no cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Install a what system?
like a fob system,
Oh, okay.
for the doors, and they're doing that at all town facilities regardless. It'll happen eventually for us, but this would just be a way of streamlining it and,
Combine.
So what is the-
Combining it.
What is the fob system?
so that like you eliminate keys
Oh,
to
okay,
come into
okay.
the facilities, and then there's some extra like security
Okay.
features too, and it's all integrated into the same system.
So that would be
So-
like, it doesn't come in, open the library anymore, you would use a fob rather than.
Yeah, or if you have after hours bookings, like there'd be some conversations we could have about that.
You'd have tracking, so you'd know that it was Carol's fob that opened the door versus.
Yeah,
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that
That's
is good.
Yeah.
and then when members of the public book our space after hours too, you know, like I would be able to arm the building. Like, there's just a couple of other
Yeah,
features.
You know, when that
that'll-
left, if they
yes.
came back or,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
So wait a minute, so the door system would be implemented at the same time regardless of whether it's this year or next year?
Yeah,
Okay.
it has to do with how they run all the wires too. It just makes sense for them to do it at the same time.
Mhm.
So what is your recommendation?
My recommendation, based on, we've already dipped into the reserves this year to help with the accessibility feasibility assessment. It's already the end of June. We do have quite a few policies and procedures now in place in terms of security that I think it would make sense to integrate it into the 2025 budget.
Maybe we could even have it done like, not at the end of 2025.
Yeah, and it would also be just making sure that IT also is putting that in
Yeah,
to their budget. And those conversations happen in August.
yeah,
I think that's important. I think that one of the principles here is their building.
Yeah.
And we're a service of theirs. And so it should be sort of their responsibility to do so, and we
Yeah.
have reason to be concerned about security. So we would, we want them to be looking at doing it in their budget next year.
Yeah,
I think that's the starting point.
mhm.
I mean, we're into June already for this year.
Didn't you hear that?
We're into June already for this year, so already
The end of
halfway through.
June.
Yeah, we have
Really?
past halfway through this year.
Mhm.
I agree.
And then see how
Yeah, I agree too.
that's received. See how that goes.
I did have a question about, sort of ongoing costs. So I noticed, and only because I've been looking into camera systems for my house. So you've got 60 days of storage. Is there and there's a cost for licensing, what are we licensing? And is there, like, do we have to pay for a subscription service for like cloud storage or?
that wasn't included in the information that I received from IT, so I think it would this just becomes a part of the system they already have and they would pay for.
Okay, in which case, why are we paying for a license? If it's the town's license, so there are two questions there, sorry, one
Okay.
is the license.
Okay,
So because often you're buying, it's like you buy any technology and you're buying a number of seats in that technology, and so. I don't know, I mean, if it's the town's, to your point, if it's the town's cost, I don't know why we're paying for a license. Unless it's required for us to have access to the information, I just understand things about the license. And then the second question is if there are ongoing subscription costs. Or other costs that just might not have been mentioned, I just want to make sure that we would know that if, all of a sudden we're hit with an annual, well,
Yeah.
your 60 days of storage costs you X a month. Whatever that is, just to know.
to my knowledge, no, there wouldn't be an additional cost. I can clarify, I can also reach back out to IT to ask.
Well, there should be some sort of maintenance program, so there will be some ongoing.
Well,
costs.
unless it's town IT, so just.
Yeah.
All the costs included. So.
I'm just a bit concerned that we're getting information as if, the library's going to do this, and this is how IT can support us. And in fact, it's the opposite, is that we want the town to be doing this. And you have a budget process coming up. And yes, we like this camera, that camera, whatever information we need to feed in that fits with our service situation. But it's their
Yeah,
initiative, and it should be in their budget.
And it's logistic detail, but the 60 days of storage, does that mean that after 60 days, everything is deleted? Or do we have the opportunity to store that somewhere else if we need it?
I think it's wiped.
So we will need to understand what kind of policies we want around that. I think most of it's covered, but again, just
Yep,
triggered, or we might want to hold on to it, but for a longer period.
And I think Sean has been,
Just asking.
I think Sean has been asking, I'm not sure who, but at council wanting to see that the security cameras are dealt with the library.
Yeah.
So I think it's there.
at this point, all of the hard work is done. They've come to do the site visits. They've identified, even from a technical perspective, where they need to. It's just finding the money.
Yeah.
Well, they're a little behind do they have cameras of their own?
Not all facilities, but yes, so this would just be adding on to a system that they already have.
Yeah, so they've really, so they've kind of dropped the ball in a way.
Mhm, yeah,
But that's
Making
okay,
sure.
we're here to remind them.
yep.
Can I just ask about whether, since cameras are going in, it would make sense to put any internally, like along that bathroom corridor? I just, you hear about all the security issues in bathrooms and libraries. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna be, cameras in there, but like, if we ever had an incident,
Where somebody followed somebody into the bathroom?
yeah,
Yeah.
it might be nice to know that there was some recording, drug overdose or,
What's done in other municipal buildings where there's public bathrooms?
Well, you can't put cameras in the bathroom.
No, but it would
But
be.
yeah,
just
I have worked in libraries where there are cameras inside.
There's been like overdoses and things like libraries, right?
Yeah, often they do happen in the bathroom though. But yeah, some libraries do have internal cameras. I think for us, most of our incidents happen, not to say that something couldn't happen inside, but most of them do happen either in the parking lot or the courtyard here. It's the same at the museum. But I believe that if we were to install cameras inside the building, then that would be our cost. Because it's interior, but I could also ask that question.
I think it's a question to ask, I was thinking the same thing, just, more about, future and.
Mhm, yeah.
I think it would be a
Like it-
risk management, yeah.
Like an upgradable system, so we could add, we can add more cameras, you don't fill the entire, system's ability with the first set of cameras.
And well, I did ask, I do know for sure that you can always add more.
Yeah, okay.
So we could start with exterior and then incorporate interior, but I can ask regardless.
Yeah,
of
because both
whose-
those two are right
responsibility that-
outside, right? Like, so, there literally would just be dropping a wire inside.
Okay,
And again, so if we decide, and it is our cost, we would know the cost for next year.
yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Cool.
So the next topic is the accessibility feasibility report.
So I had a meeting with the consultants earlier this week and then we had to cut it short and we've rescheduled for tomorrow. So it's just a really quick update, but, the consultant is ready to do a presentation to Phil and myself about all of the recommendations and findings, and then we can adjust it. The one thing I did ask was, does anything you are recommending feed into our space needs assessment? And she did say, yes, it does.
Okay.
The only other, I asked her, if she had any questions that were unanswered after the site tour that she did here. And the one thing she asked was, this was interesting, whether or not we've had people confused about navigating the library more so near the stacks because of the patterns on the floor. And I'm not sure I even fully understand, but my answer was no, but she's going to have some recommendations for flooring and how that actually feeds into how certain people navigate the space and where to go, like what direction to go.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that'll
that's a
come
huge
out.
thing in hospitals too, wayfinding, but like, it's not.
I didn't
big.
think it was an issue, but it'll be interesting to see her findings, but I do have a meeting tomorrow with, the consultant and Phil, so I'll get more information and then I plan to bring it back to the board in
Wayfinding?
July.
Wayfinding, well, yeah, it's a thing, yeah.
We used to call it signage, but we'll get, now it's called
It's
specific,
those, like,
signs and directions.
Trying to find the X-ray department and
Like
you're like,
the red.
yeah, the red.
Yes, it's that yellow brick
Oh.
road, yeah, it's not a sign.
But it also, it gets into, colors of if you're visually impaired and,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's quite a science, it's.
Yeah.
She did mention though, this is one hint at how this feeds into our space needs. So the width of our stacks is compliant. But so you know, you can fit a mobility device through, you could walk through the stacks comfortably with a service dog. But if you were using a mobility device and had a service animal, you couldn't actually navigate our library from that perspective, or if somebody else was trying to walk through at the same time. So this is where that whole Rick Hansen standard feeds into how she analyzed the entire building. It's really going very far beyond the AODA and the building code, so I'm excited to see some of the results, but yeah, that was something else that she shared.
Mhm. Okay, Youth Climate Action Fund.
So I am now a part of the project team for the Town of the Blue Mountains Youth Climate Action Fund, which is pretty exciting. So essentially, council accepted the money. We've got 50,000 American dollars to hand out as micro grants for youth-led climate initiatives. And so we had a meeting this week where we were going over all the details of the project and how we're going to educate the community, consult. So we've been playing a really big role in connecting with local organizations, schools. We're hoping to plan an information session for collaboratively for this particular project. We're dealing with a really tight timeline. All of the funds have to be spent by the end of the year. But should we spend all of the funds by the end of the year, we may qualify for another $100,000 next year
Wow.
to extend the program. And the micro grants can be up to $6,000. So when you think about $50,000, we don't need to have that many submissions. I don't have any updates on how many submissions we've had so far. I think there's at least 3. But that's just, again, another example of how we're working really closely with the town and really showing how connected we are with,
So this is a town-led
community.
initiative.
yes.
And they're doing all the paperwork and everything.
Yes,
associated with
and
it.
everything's to do with the money, accepting and distributing the money, yeah.
That's good.
Why is it American dollars?
I think it's because the Bloomberg Foundation,
Oh, donated it
Yes.
in America.
and we're one of very few municipalities in, I know that Guelph received the funding as well. I should have wrote these stats down.
Canadian.
Yeah, that were selected.
Well,
And
it's partly because he was in the announcement, I'm very excited, I also happen to be a member of the Climate Action Network, so I heard about it.
yeah,
It's okay, I just love to get involved.
You signing up for that?
Coming up with everything, but anyway, and so I think it came out of the mayor's,
Yeah.
That's good.
when she, yeah, and though this is actually a little interesting and it feeds into you, Lori. Lori had the idea of having the mayor come do a presentation about the climate action conference that she attended. And it was there when her and I first actually talked about the potential of them getting this funding. So there was like a bit of a connection made at a library event before we were even formally appointed to the project team or asked to participate on the project team. So that's just,
So just a quick question, so what is the role of the library in the program? So the town's doing sort of selection and dissemination, so,
I'm also on the selection committee.
okay.
And this just happened this week at our meeting, so we've got the project team whose main responsibility is to get the information out there and encourage people to participate. But then the project team appointed a smaller subcommittee that will select the successful projects. And so I was actually nominated to sit on the selection committee too, which is
So does the
awesome.
library get recognition for this contribution?
In what way?
I don't know, just there should be So like when the grant is given, is it just given by the town because it's a town-led program, or does the library get a little corner?
Be right there with.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think,
like, is this an opportunity to give the library some profile?
I think so, but I think more from an internal perspective. There might be, I don't know.
Okay,
I was actually thinking more, and again, this just comes from the conversation we had with Cam, Megan from BBO was presenting this. Is part of the challenge is because it's youth, is actually reaching youth.
Yes,
Like, they're just about to finish school, and then everybody's gonna disappear, and it is youth, and it's also, it's up to 22 years old, it's like 17, I forget the age
8.
range is, but. I'm
knows,
literally
too.
just wondering if there's an opportunity to have a youth climate action brainstorming day at the library or something, is there some way?
Well, that-
And maybe that's the plan.
It
Maybe
is,
it's the
yeah.
Plan, but to me, that's. I'm just like, oh my goodness, there's such a great opportunity, but all these, these kids, they
Yeah.
don't live nearby, and they, and there's it's a lot of, they have to actually create a business proposal or a business case.
Yes.
Yeah, quite a bit.
well, we are doing a workshop. I didn't realize they had already posted this though. And the library space wasn't available for that. So we were talking about, I guess they actually published, it's now taking place at the council chambers. But we also, to get the information out there into the schools before the end of the school year. We had one of our staff members who sits on the Youth Roots Council. That was her way into the school. There would have been no other way to get in, especially at this time of year. So we've very much been part of trying to get the information to youth because we already have those existing connections. So, yeah, a lot of that work has already started, but
That's really exciting.
So I think you need to keep in mind what type of,
yeah.
how does a library get profile?
That'd be great, we should promote it on the sign.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I did a blog post on our website.
Yeah.
We're obviously doing like some social media stuff. It'll go out in our newsletter as well. So from a communication standpoint, we've been working pretty closely to help get that stuff out.
Can you say libraries in partnership with the town? Or is that too formal?
In the newsletter,
Yeah, or something.
I can't remember how I framed it. I'll take a, see if I can shift it a little bit. I may have framed it that way.
Because although we're not putting money in, you're donating time.
Yeah,
It's awesome. That's such an exciting thing.
Actually, I was just thinking about the key messages and so much of what we're doing now, what I think is great, is in close partnership with the town.
Yeah.
Whether it's the feasibility study, it's the youth thing,
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
good.
cultural mapping, it's the arts and culture trust walk.
yeah,
I think that would be a good way of framing most of our key messages as our various partnerships with the
I like
town.
that idea.
Very exciting.
Okay, that's it for that topic? Yes?
Yes.
Can you pull up the intellectual freedom policy, please? I missed picking this up at the last meeting, and buried in my papers on policy items that it was, they were going to come back to the board. And, there was a discussion under, you can see the changes here. And I forget what meeting that came up at. It may not even been this board. But I know Sabrina was here. Anyway, it was about ensuring that when we talked about intellectual freedom, that we're talking about not only the freedom to read, but to participate in programs and services. And then, we deleted that, and I don't remember who the we was now, but it didn't get picked up, I guess, in the transition between Sabrina
No,
and, Jen, but deleting that sentence about democracy. Partly because I think it's talking about all viewpoints was a bit of the trap the media fell into. Is that, it was all viewpoints, but only not all fact-based viewpoints. So that's why I talked about deleting that sentence. So, I'd like to Get a move on a seconder to approve the policy with these changes.
I have some changes, actually, I have some questions. before we-
Okay, yes, Julie.
So,
Hang on a second, Julie.
Oh, I was gonna move it, then do we
Oh,
discuss
okay,
it?
no. Okay, well, let's have the discussion
Yeah.
first.
yeah, so number 3, under intellectual freedom. Intellectual freedom does not protect action statements or activities or promote or incite discrimination, contempt, racism, hatred, or anything. Do we have definitions of those? Like, did you use human rights code definitions or something?
It's not built into the policy, it could be,
It could be, yeah.
Yeah,
I just
but
think.
that's what it would be based off
As
of,
defined.
yeah.
Yeah, just because if you get to a point where you're gonna deny something, you wanna be able to link it back to, and then if those ever get questioned, I'm sure they're grounded somewhere.
And if you go up the top, does it mention the various legislation
does.
it talks about and human,
Oh,
and this,
no, it doesn't, because I don't think it.
oh, there it is, there's criminal code.
Criminal
Oh, there.
code, yeah,
And all
okay,
those
so it needs to be
things-
added to the top too,
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
And then, E93, oh yeah, okay, so under museum intellectual freedom. So there's something in there about meeting the mandate of the museum. Okay, that was it, but so then who decides whether, do we have a similar thing, meeting the mandate of the library? Again, I'm always thinking of if you're gonna deny something and someone challenges us, how does this policy protect you?
And where, tell us where you are, Carol.
So under 89.3, you have museum intellectual freedom. Where it says here, neither the board or any other body may direct or restrict the types of collections or how they are exhibited, providing said collections and their exhibit meet the mandate of the museum. So do we have something similar on statement on the library? Cause I'm assuming it's the CEO's decision whether something stays in the library or not.
Well, we have policies, like our collections policy, and then it references the OLA statement to intellectual freedom, which is,
It's attached to this.
yes.
Yeah, I read that.
And that really provides the foundation for,
And I guess the museum is separate because it's not covered under that.
yes.
Okay.
And intellectual freedom in museums is a tiny bit different than libraries too,
Okay. But then, so who decides whether it meets the mandate?
of the museum.
Yeah,
It would be,
again, if you were gonna deny something because you said, no, it doesn't meet the mandate of the museum. How would you do that?
it would probably come from me in consultation with the curator.
Okay,
And
Somebody
then,
were to donate, like.
And there are the mandates, by the way, because you're.
if you think of white supremacy,
Yeah,
yeah,
would it be accepted under this? Would it not be accepted? Would it be considered racism? Like,
well, and that's how it's, yeah, that is how it's different. There's certain, well, for instance, there's even, like we did a toy exhibit recently, and like you could have toys from, I don't know, the 40s that depict Black
which would
people.
be very inappropriate now.
Yes, but
Yeah.
from the museum's perspective, it's a piece of education. So like there's certain, not to say that we would necessarily display certain things, but would we reject a donation of a toy that was from this area, that's a realistic,
That is a representation.
that is a yes. Probably not. We would probably accept it. Would we just publicly put it on display and knowing who's coming in? And that would be another discussion, but should it be a book from that time period being added to the, or donated to be put in the children's collection here? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't
Yeah,
know if that's the best example, but
So your question though is it clear in the policy who,
How's that?
how the decision is
Yeah.
made?
yeah. And is the decision challenged? Can it be challenged?
Right.
There is a whole process.
So the
around
way,
that.
so the way this is written, when you talked about at the bottom.
There is challenges, there is a section on challenges.
Yeah, so,
But it doesn't really say. Okay, so it says the CEO will be responsible for reviewing the challenges. But who's making the decision to say yes or no, it can be put in a display?
I'm pretty sure our collection policy, which I can bring up too. I make the decision, it
So
doesn't
why
come
don't you
to the
just reference
board.
that up there then say, as per the collection, like in the,
Yeah.
Just make sure
museum,
it
and
doesn't
I don't know if it's the same with the, or maybe you just say something right up front in the main
But it does
sentence.
say associated documents, collection development. Or collection
So that-
policy.
It should be collection policy, it should also, is the museum policy the same as the collection policy, or? is it-
It's all in there,
It's
yeah,
all in the same,
Okay,
yeah. I can add that though.
probably a good idea. Decisions regarding collections.
as per policy are made by the CEO, period, and then that's that.
Okay.
That was my only thing.
And I just had a question, but it's not related to the policy, it's more. Will you bring forward any challenges? That are received? Like, it's very clear that these fall under your purview. Collections and programs are operational, but, I think it would be good information for us to have.
If, it would depend, like if it was a hot ticket item, like I think I
You would
talked
bring.
about that one. Interesting book recently about residential schools. Then I would definitely share information with the board, especially if there were any implications on. Like the media or how
Yeah.
the library is being
Book banning,
perceived,
something
absolutely,
like
yeah,
that, yeah.
but if it's a matter of us every now and then. Choosing not to purchase
Yeah.
something, I wouldn't bring it to the board.
Perhaps that might be a quarterly update, it's just.
There is a report we get annually called a risk assessment report, and I think it's where you.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Just to understand, and if it's not the details of, it's because I think what we would wanna know is there an increasing number
Right.
of challenges?
Right.
Trends,
Or-
trends,
yeah.
report, media,
Yeah,
you mentioned
trends.
media, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I can say though. We haven't really had to.
good.
Yeah, since, like, we haven't dealt with that really yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we have a mover and seconder to approve this policy as amended? Julia, thank you. And Carol, thank you. All in favor? That is carried.
So we did do this last time, but
We did this, I think it was last time.
yeah, because it's in the minutes.
Yeah, but
We
That's
didn't
what-
get to this one,
did we know?
no, that's why.
Well, no,
it was-
because I'm in the minutes talking about
We
it.
got through all, it's just, this didn't,
This
this
comment.
version didn't come
Yeah,
forward.
okay, okay.
And I think I got lost between our
Yeah, 'cause I
CEO
reviewed it.
leaderships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I must have been fatigued, because I had no issue.
Well, we
last time
were,
with
like-
it.
yeah. Well, that was like 20 policies.
Then when I reviewed this one all alone as a policy.
yeah, the whole policy review reading is a bit of a show.
Mhm.
Okay, so our next item is CEO service update for June. Over to you, Jen.
I've still been playing around with the format.
Oh, I'm good.
Should I go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I've been playing around with the format a little bit. Some of I did highlights and numbers and I did try to connect it back to the action plan.
Uh-huh.
I'm still really. It might change again, but I did include also at a previous meeting, we talked about reporting on new members each month, so I included that. In the numbers as well. We ended up raising over $1,000 for future local history films through the Real Film Festival. I mentioned at the last meeting that I would provide an update on that number once we had it. I don't know if anything else really stood out to anyone in the report.
So
There's
the
some comments.
26 new members, is that good? Is that a good
Yeah.
number?
I know,
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
people.
Good.
You'll appreciate this after you see our presentation from last fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were asking like those kinds of questions. Is 26 good?
I thought
The answer is yeah.
Still coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, what?
We actually recently, so there's a little part in Mary's section here for outreach where we talk about that, you know, we expanded our gardener in residence program, launched a seed library. We've already received a $200 donation from the Climate Action Now group specifically for the seed library. So that was, you know, that's a very new initiative and we've already received some community support, which is awesome.
Can I just ask, because a couple people, again, I heard about it and I was talking about it, and the website, so you've got a pamphlet with more information. I don't think all the same information is on the website.
I'll look into
I
that.
just, like, so what are we collecting and how? I don't think it's there.
Okay, I
Unless
will,
it's been updated, because I went and got a pamphlet or something.
Okay.
But yeah. Great.
do you want me to check right now
Nope.
in real time? Okay.
Yeah.
Something in me says it's there, but I will definitely double check.
So I'm happy to be wrong.
And then let me here. So, okay, make a note. We, at the beginning of this month, our summer students started. So we have 2 summer programming students. And then we also received grant funding for an internship at the museum. So our museum interpreter, Andrea, is actually taking on that role. So she's now full-time until the end of November, which is excellent. And it's a really good growth opportunity for her as well. She works 10 hours and now she's bumped up to full-time and is working on more collections.
And she's happy.
based. Very excited,
Oh,
yes.
that's good.
Yeah. And we received over 20 applications to that job posting. It was posted externally. We had to weed out quite a few candidates though that didn't meet the criteria of the age being between, I think it was 15 and 30. Some people were turning 31 before the employment date started. But lots of interest from the GTA, like serious interest of recent grads, so it's kind of interesting. We'd got an overwhelming amount of applications for the other position too this year, so it just kind of, things change.
It speaks to the growing permanent residents or people who are here more, right? The
Yeah.
Population in the city.
And the quality of the candidates, those were very hard decisions to make.
Actually, it speaks to the reputation of the library.
That too, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? We were in the news a lot recently,
Yeah, great.
both May and June, which I included
Oh, no,
with some links up here too.
Oh, yeah, can you just scroll back to just the paragraph before on the previous page, the last
Mhm.
paragraph there, the partnership,
Oh, the brochure swap is,
yeah,
well,
that was really neat,
Yeah, that was it too, yeah.
yeah.
it was a really good opportunity, to share information and collect. I think Mary came back with tons of stuff, but, they do that every year, so that's something we're gonna add to our annual outreach calendar.
That'd be really great to do. Because I've been to one of the Palo Regalia events, they're so great, really great. Other event begins.
That was actually, Mary was there doing outreach on behalf of both the library and museum that day too, so she's taking on a little more museum stuff too. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on this?
No, that's good.
Okay, oh, other business, we had our Save Our School Libraries petition.
Oh, yes. So I did share information with the board about this, but the Ontario Library Association, they do have a sub-association for it specifically for school libraries, but I'm just using OLA as the umbrella organization. They've launched a petition to help save school libraries in Ontario. Back in April, the Ministry of Education changed the legislation so that school boards no longer have to report on how they're spending the funding that's supposed to go toward school libraries and teacher librarians. And we were already seeing a decline in those services being offered through schools. So this is really just an advocacy effort to put some pressure to change the legislation back and to show how much community support there really is for school librarians and why it's important. So
So which legislation was changed?
it's related to funding for schools. So the overall funding, but the one piece where before, I guess, school libraries school boards used to have to report specifically on how they were spending the money specifically for the school library, where now they're still receiving the funding, but they just don't have to explain where it's going. So there's no dedicated,
So they'll have so it might have been, resource item, and it might be resources for library, resources for, arts programs, whatever. It might now just be a big bucket, and the school itself can decide how they're gonna spend it, which means.
those
they have
reports.
discretion not to spend it on libraries. Which is scary.
I just wanna make sure I'm not missing anything either.
So is there something we can, other than individually signing it, is there something we could do or should do as a board? Or,
I don't believe so at the board level. I will, if anyone is interested in supporting, this is what we're mailing on behalf of our
Sure,
library.
absolutely.
And then we are also doing some social media to also support the petition as well. Not saying everyone has to sign it, but hey, are you aware of this? And do you care about school libraries? But it has to be, they'll only accept
That's
something
it
in
Right, yeah.
handwriting.
They're looking for numbers.
Difficult as possible.
Someone else, I think I know.
And there is, if you want to read more about it, if I didn't do the
No.
greatest
I just wanna find
explanation.
I didn't see it as a board item. I thought it was an individual item, so you're just confirming that.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
and I know Sean mentioned, like, is there anything that we can really do at the council level? I still wanna sit on that one, but
I think making the petition available, but again, to the point, we were gonna sign it if we feel strongly or not.
I think you should put it at the front desk, cause probably some parents would be keen to sign.
And while we're doing this, do you want to move on to the next agenda item, which I think is roundtable? Is there anything there?
this Saturday, our staff will be at the Clarksburg Children's Festival, and we're doing a bunch of activities, but it's the official launch of our TD Summer Reading Club. If anyone is interested, I'll be here, but Jen Dominguez and one of our summer students will be working the event.
The link for the iPad security, I don't have an iPad, but I've clicked on all the links. That one doesn't work. It says it's restricted.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
The one in the agenda?
yeah.
Oh,
Cause I clicked on the others, cause I was interested in the planetarium.
Right.
and the Reading challenge.
something probably got edited on the page after I just wanna make sure the registration link works. I'll check that out again.
That planetarium looked interesting, but is that more of a kid's thing? Yeah. It says, yeah,
Maybe you should suggest it to the programs. There you go. I keep needing to look at those.
Well, in terms of key messages,
yeah.
I mentioned the whole question about the partnership stuff. I'm not sure how they fall out in terms of which. I think they wonder, but, and then Volt, I guess, is important that we they have some initial findings and are working on a presentation.
Do you want me to mention that about anything about the subcommittee? A subcommittee is
Yes,
informed.
Yeah. To follow up, do a presentation to council.
What is the tour of the universe?
I don't know, I thought it sounded kind of neat, but I don't really need to be around a packed gallery of screaming 8-year-olds. Cute as they'd be.
I'll pull up the description so that. Yeah, oh wait, it's in July, it's July 8th, I think.
Yeah, July. It doesn't imply it's not it's for all ages.
You could come.
I could, it's all right.
Category, children.
Oh, 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 no.
okay.
That was kind of neat,
So we just touched base on the key messages. We already mentioned the one about all the TBM partnerships. That we formed a subcommittee to do some more work on Volt and messaging. Anything else we think we should mention key messages?
And I suggest that the Blue Mountain Public Library Arts and Crafts Walk be a separate item. Because although it's it is literally the library's event,
Yeah.
right, that the town is supporting, which is lovely, that's big collaboration, is great. I just think it's really important that our public knows that this was an initiative by the
Yes.
library, and because it is part of the cultural, building of the culture and supporting the culture in the town. They were, thrilled that it's happening, and maybe it's another point of expanding to crafts.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, good, in our second year. After, I said second year. We can say we appreciate the town's cooperation.
Yes.
Any other items for the key messages?
Do we want to include the school libraries piece?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So can I have a mover and seconder to approve the release of the messages? Carol,
Awesome.
Jan? So you'll draft those and I'll give them, great, on paper? Thank you. Carried. So our next meeting date is July 25.
So is that a permanent shift for July, so everybody can go to the Probus picnic?
What?
Yes, because we asked especially last year and I was like so excited because I think we were scheduled for the 18th.
Yes, we are scheduled for the eighteenth.
We are,
This
yeah.
must be an error.
Well, no, but
Wait,
But Chris, I know
Oh.
for sure, and I wanna go to the Provis picnic. Which is on the 18th.
Okay, so we must have moved it then. I
Yeah,
didn't
we
remember
must have, but I don't remember doing it.
I remember doing it, I just didn't,
I thought it was last year.
okay.
Okay, so this year, so
Yeah.
now, are you
Just
asking
did it
to move the meeting?
No,
Oh,
I'm very happy that it's July 25th on the agenda. As a matter of fact, when I saw that, I went and registered for the Provis
I
picnic.
have to go home now and see, because I haven't been home for.
I have it in my calendar for the 18th.
Yeah. So
I have
don't
my
have
calendar
all-
eighteenth, but mine's okay for the 25th. In fact, it gives us a bit more time because we have a number of things happening.
Yeah, it does, it does. I think I'm okay on the 25th. Unless you have a golf tournament or something, that's on the 26th. Well, there you go, those close, no, those close, yeah, it's on a Friday, so I'm okay.
So what are we doing about this? Should we leave it on the 25th? Because we,
Unless you hear back.
Chris may have asked you to do this before, because she's brought it up
do you
last year.
remember, do you remember a discussion about it?
I don't.
Okay, well, then it must have been a year ago that we moved it, because it is normally the third Thursday, right?
Yes, I think it was a mistake.
Well,
Do you put it in the calendar
every year.
Outlook? Is it in the Outlook calendar?
No, do you want me to do that?
I think it might. I'm just thinking if some of us have it on the 18th or the 25th or whatever, let's just make sure that everybody knows what the date is. I agree with you, would use a little more time.
So why don't we leave it to the 25th unless there's major objection?
Oh, it's in the calendar as the 18th.
That's,
There is something in the calendar
Yeah, it says library board.
in Outlook?
Yeah,
okay, that's fine.
I wonder if
It
Sabrina
showed up in
scheduled
my
that.
calendar, but I thought I had put that in there. So.
Yeah, there it is. I have it in my calendar.
What's on the 25th?
Wait, that's Marion's calendar. Oh, yeah, because now we have to see if the boardroom's available. Good call. When?
Shouldn't have said anything, should you?
well, no,
No, it's
it's like,
half of us would appear.
Here, the 18th.
no, I read it because I was
You
relieved.
would have been after Jennifer
Now I
for
have
a
to
full
select
package.
the picnic. It sounds like a really good time.
I've never been, but apparently, it is.
The boardroom is available.
Okay, awesome.
Better book it.
Okay.
I don't think I have anything on that date, but I have to check.
Okay, so at this point, it's moved to the July 25th unless we have major
And
objections.
since we don't have one of those. Then that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, do you want to get together on the 18th after the picnic?
Oh,
Do we wanna do?
after the picnic.
Do we wanna do it sooner than the 18th?
Tell you what, let's finish this meeting and then we can look at our calendars.
Okay, well, I'm gonna declare the meeting adjourned at,
Sorry, did we talk about the audited financials?
No, the next meeting.
Next
We can get the report.
Okay, so there's no movement or motion or whatever. Okay, great, sorry, I missed that. So I will vote to close the meeting. Whatever the motion.
okay, and Julia, so it is done, 4:35. Thank you very much.
Great.
Okay, I'm still recording for a second here.
Yeah, it must be that envelope that's down there that Sean left.
Oh, I'm gonna end the letter. Yes.